I think, once this Band-Aid has been pulled, then I think it's easier to have discussions.
With Alex and T-Bone on VK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That was John Mozeliak at the beginning of the offseason talking about what the Cardinals' plans are for the offseason as it pertains to their veterans. Well, Alex, there's a piece over in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today discussing exactly what the Cardinals' plans are going into the offseason, and it basically goes through everything that we knew. Hey, they've got a problem with their RSN. They don't know exactly what their budget is going to be for the upcoming season, and they're planning to take payroll down in a meaningful way. But there is a quote in here, again, this is from Gerrit Cole of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, that I do find to be interesting. And T-Bone was the one that pointed this out to us and said, I think there's something here. Said both Nolan Arenado and Willson Contreras have no trade clauses that can dictate whether or not they will accept going anywhere, if at all. Sonny Gray is another veteran with a big contract and a no-trade clause, though, quote, he has shown an openness to stay with the Cardinals. He has shown an openness to staying with the Cardinals. He then continued, the Cardinals expect to hear from teams interested in closer Ryan Helsley, catcher Ivan Herrera, and a lefty Steven Matz, among others, end quote. I do find it interesting, A, who he specifically referenced, and B, who he did not reference in that story. Gerrit Cole is very good at his job, and he doesn't just do this for no reason. So the three names that he mentioned specifically in this story, this means that he's heard with reporting that they are at least getting calls on these players. Ryan Helsley, we said yesterday, Jeff Passan agreed. Industry sources suggest he's going to be traded this offseason. Ivan Herrera, we'll get to that, and Steven Matz. Those are the three names that he mentioned. He said that Sonny Gray, open to remaining with the Cardinals. Worth noting there. Alex, what do you make about the players that were mentioned in this story and the players that were not mentioned in this story from Gerrit Cole today?
The players mentioned, with the exception of Ivan Herrera, don't surprise me. Steven Matz, Ryan Helsley. To me, it always felt like those guys were probably the first on the chopping block with the Cardinals. I think what you mentioned of the guys not named are the part that's more telling. Because if you're mentioning Sonny Gray, who has a no-trade clause that has expressed his interest to remain with the Cardinals, and where are the other two guys with trade clauses, and where are their expressed interest? So it might be more of us reading between the lines, but Ryan Helsley was all but gone, in my opinion. Steven Matz, I would put him in the same conversation for how it's gone, and because he's not as expensive. Somebody might look at that and say, hey, the Cardinals don't know how to develop players. We can go get something good with him. But to me, if Sonny Gray is expressing the interest, then where's Nolan Arenado? Where's Willson Contreras? Because when you're slashing costs for your team, two guys that make just as much money as Sonny Gray will this upcoming season, those are the ones that my gut would tell me emphasis is the Cardinals are approaching them. Does that mean that teams aren't interested in those players? Or does that mean that those players have been approached, they don't want to be traded away?
I have a question, guys. We're cutting payroll, that's correct?
No, we're competing.
Oh, well, then my question doesn't need to be answered. Okay, so Matt makes sense. Helsley makes sense to be exploring trading those guys because we're slashing payroll. That third name of Ivan Herrera, who's making $800,000, doesn't make a lot of sense to be in these conversations. What the hell are you trading him for? Because it's not a cost-cutting measure by trading a catcher that makes $800,000 that, by the way, hit $300 this past season.
He doesn't know how to throw.
Why do they want to trade him?
He doesn't know how to throw.
Can we go back to that for a second? You said Ivan Herrera did what?
He hit just casually 300. You know, the thing that nobody does in baseball now?
How does that get zero discussion?
He can't throw from the catcher's position.
Then find him a new position.
Pedro Pajes throws the ball more efficiently. God, I don't know. You guys not even understand ball?
Apparently not.
You guys even ball?
It's very confusing to me, and I think it speaks to what Alex mentioned. Hey, who wasn't mentioned, who was mentioned in this story? Well, you heard Sonny Gray is potentially open to remaining. It sounds like the Cardinals are expecting to get trade conversations about Ivan Herrera. Well, why would they get those? Potentially because Willson Contreras would also like to stay. Otherwise, you're not trading Ivan Herrera, at least in my mind. So
BK looks like Charlie Day right now. He's like, why is this happening?
I mean, it is possible to read between the lines in these situations. I feel like in the past we've been able to do that pretty well. The Cardinals will leave you breadcrumbs without openly telling you what they're doing. And I feel like this is one of those first breadcrumbs for us is, okay, Ivan Herrera, the Cardinals expecting to hear from teams interested in him. Makes sense. Ivan Herrera, a good young player who they could potentially target to be a good hitter for them. And hey, if he doesn't throw guys out on the base path, so what? A lot of people aren't good at that. We can figure out what to do with his arm because the bat plays, and we'll find a place for him, even if it's not long-term going to be behind the plate. Ryan Helsley, of course, Steven Matz, of course, we knew those to be the case. Makes me wonder, maybe Willson Contreras wants to be here. Sonny Gray apparently is open to being here. Doesn't say specifically wants to be here, but open to the idea of remaining around. Not sure if that makes sense for the Cardinals, but whatever. And what's left unsaid here is Nolan Arenado. That is the one that I find to be maybe the most interesting. We've talked about this a dozen different times, Alex, but I feel like this is a scenario where it makes sense for both sides to move on their separate ways. It just comes down to who wants him. If
where does he want to go?
The Astros or the Dodgers, or even maybe if the Yankees are interested in Nolan Arenado, sure, he makes a lot of sense for any of those teams. Hell, even Washington. Washington's going to be in the Alex Bregman market, apparently. If they fall short on Bregman, are they maybe interested in bringing in a Nolan Arenado? Maybe. I don't know. Is that a spot that Nolan Arenado would be interested in? I don't know. But those are the things that are interesting there. Can we go back to Ivan Herrera? Why would they do this? Why would they do it? You're in a retool right now, and this is a guy that last year hit 300, was 25% above league average offensively at a position where very few hitters are actually above average offensively. He's one of 12 catchers in the last 25 years at his age or younger to hit 300 in a season. What are we doing here? What am I missing? I've got to be missing something.
When you ask the question, why would they be doing this? In any situation, you'd be doing this to better your team. Because Ivan Herrera is somebody who you view as like, hey, he's a really good prospect. We just talked about he's hitting 300 at the major league level. Why would you trade that player? Well, you trade that player to go get more certainty and more of a superstar than what Ivan Herrera is, i.e. a Vlad Guerrero Jr. But the Cardinals aren't going to do that. I mean, we argued about this, not argued, we got upset about this season for how much they weren't playing Ivan Herrera. And the reasoning why, I said it tongue-in-cheek, but I think that's part of it. They didn't like the defense, and they value defense. If you trade Ivan Herrera, one, that man is going to make you pay. But two, are you trading him because you don't feel like the team is going to play him? Because doesn't that say more about the coaching staff than it does the front office trading away this guy?
I mean, the front office can ultimately decide we're not trading him, and then boom, you got to play him.
And they can,
or they don't play him.
I mean, most done this before. Just has Mike Matheny. They can take away a toy, or they can send a toy down to the minors. Yeah, like they could if their coaching staff says, well, we like Pages. Well, you know what you can't like? A toy that's not here. Pages is in Memphis, or Pages is traded, or Contreras is traded, and now you've got Herrera. Like, they can manipulate around that. I don't understand it because, like, the Matz and Helsley thing makes sense. You're trying to cost cut right now if you're the Cardinals. So I can understand how you try and move those guys. What I don't get with the Herrera one is I would much rather value offense over defense. And I would think that they would have learned their lesson from, I don't know, maybe you've heard of this guy, Randy Rosarena that they traded. Like, sure, he's not good defensively. No, you can work on defense. What's easier to work on and teach at the big league level? Defense or hitting a baseball where guys are throwing at 95 miles an hour and have some of the filthiest stuff on the planet? I'll take the guy that hit 300 last year, please.
I have no questions about Ivan Herrera's bat. None whatsoever. He's not a guy that strikes out a lot. He struck out 20% of the time last year. He's not a guy that has a problem with discipline at the plate. He walked 10% of the time last year. He's not a guy that got lucky last season, right? Sometimes you see this where a guy will come up, the Jeremy Hazelbaker thing, where it's like, that's not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. No. Bat played in the minor leagues at every level that he went to. He was excellent at AAA the year before, so much so that the Cardinals were like, we really like Andrew Kisner, but there's no reason for us to pick up this option. It's a couple $1 million that we can save. Ivan Herrera has nothing left to prove in the minor leagues. It's time for him to reach the big league level. So the Cardinals themselves had shown we are very high on this player. We believe in this player, especially the bat that he's working with. And defensively, it was an adventure at times last season. No doubt about it. There were times 2 years ago where they didn't like the game calling. Feels like that took a step forward last year based on their comments, not ours. And he allowed basically every base stealer to steal successfully. It's hard to say otherwise.
So did Paz, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paz
But Von Herrera was like less than half of his caught stealing rate.
Sure.
Von Herrera had a real problem behind the plate with catching stealers. I feel like that is something that you can work on, but the Cardinals said this all season. That's something you have to wait until the offseason to really improve upon, because you can do, whether it's arm strengthening programs or just working with him on accuracy, there are ways to get better with that. And even if he never does, even if he's just always going to be a guy that is a liability behind the plate, his bat plays to the point where you could either try him at first base, he's pretty athletic, or at DH. And the bat is so damn good that, yes, you lose some value by him being a DH. You know who's a really good player, though? Willson Contreras. You know where he plays like 3 times a week? DH. You know who else is a really good player and consistently gets $15 million contracts on the open market? JD Martinez. You know where he plays? DH. Jock Peterson, DH. There are guys that have carved out a really nice career by just being a DH. I think Herrera is better than that and more athletic than that to be somebody that can play elsewhere. I think first base might be his landing spot if it doesn't work behind the plate. But even if it does get to the point where he has to be a designated hitter, you can make it work. The bat is that valuable. So it does not make sense to me that he would be somebody that is open in trade discussions unless they're trading for a star. That's the only scenario where it makes sense to me. If you are upgrading from a Von Herrera or Jordan Walker or one of these other young players, Nolan Gorman, I could see in that scenario, okay, we're piecing together 3 of these guys for one superstar that we have lacked from our minor league system. And Mo, you guys remember the quote recently where he said to Martin Kilcoyne, hey, the thing that we have been lacking is that star that comes from within our system. There is a way to do that. It is by trading multiple of your young position players to be able to go acquire one. I just don't know how likely that is. And if you're not doing that, I'm not trading Von Herrera flat. I'm not trading him this offseason.
For a team that held 3 press conferences talking about how their minor league system is flawed and they need to fix that, this was not a good start to an offseason if you do go about it this way, where you're trading somebody who is developed through your system, but you haven't seen him enough at the major league level, or frankly given him the shot at the major league level at the position, or at least altered your thoughts where he could play. That's not a good start to be explaining to people that, yeah, we're going to try and switch things up with the way we've run this organization, of trading that player away and then watching him go on to have success.
Beyond that, last thing that I wanted to get to here in our open today, how much payroll is this team really going to have to shed? Because I was looking at it earlier today on Baseball Reference. They're at roughly $140 million. This is including all the arbitration numbers and whatnot. Like, just he projected what they're going to have to pay for their 2025 payroll today. Be roughly $140 million. Last year, they were at like 175, 180, depending on where you look in terms of the end of season number. So they've already cut, according to those numbers, $30 to $35 million from their payroll. They were expecting $70 million from their RSN. That was the previous anticipated number for the upcoming season. You're not going to get that. I don't know what it's going to be, but you're not going to get 70. Let's call it 50, 40. Go really conservative, $40 million. They get almost half of what they were anticipating. That's a $30 million shortfall. You add in what they're expecting for ticket sales, which will be down this year because they're not going to be good. I don't know what that number would be, but it's going to be a shortfall there as well. Are we expecting them to slash like $50 million in payroll? $60 million in payroll? How low does this thing need to go?
I mean, if you're asking me, I would say you've probably already accomplished with what you're doing. But if you're asking the business side of things, wouldn't you cut this as much as you can? Because it does,
I wouldn't.
2 purposes. You're, one, saving a lot of money in an RSN situation that you believe is going to be bad for the next couple of years. And 2, you're opening up more roster positions for the younger players on your team.
I think this offseason, if they trade Nolan Arenado, Steven Matz, Ryan Helsley, I think you're good. I see no reason to make any other moves. And if Arenado tells you no, Sonny Gray says I want to stay, Willson Contreras says I want to stay, if you just trade Ryan Helsley and Steven Matz, you're like $18 million added to what you're already down. So you're at like $125 million for payroll next year. That should be more than enough. You've slashed $50 million.
You know what's better than $50 million? $70 million.
Sure.
$75 million.
But I'm not making moves just to make moves to slash payroll. I'm making moves because it's making my team better, or because a guy wants to go elsewhere and it's going to be a problem for me in the locker room. Or I'm capitalizing on Sonny Gray having real value right now with multiple years left on his contract. Like, that's why I'm making these moves. I'm not doing it just to shed salary. I don't think the Cardinals need to at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of our offseason has been more of just making moves to make moves. Like, do they really think that doing all of this, having these conversations with Matz and Helsley, make them a better team in the long run? Maybe Helsley, but same with Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, Willson Contreras. Like,
Matz feels like you're making a move just to make a move.
yeah, like
But you need the opportunity. I could see that. Like, if you're not going to end up being able to move on from Michaelis, nobody wants the contract. Matt's probably still has value out there. And I'm going to use that spot in my rotation for McGreevy or Palante or eventually Quinn Matthews. So I could see that.
Sure, but
Same thing
I would
for
almost,
Arenado.
I could
I'm
almost
moving Gorman over.
argue, well, you still have an asset in Matz, and I would move him to the bullpen
Hey,
if
you know,
you're trying to win.
I'm with you.
Like, that's why, like, I get what you're saying, but I think most of this offseason has been more about making moves to make moves than it is of, oh, we're doing what's best baseball-wise. To your question, though, like, how much do they need to shed? My guess is they're going to try and shed the full, whatever it is, $70 million of the Valley situation. Why? Because then you're guaranteed to come out in a wash. You know, no matter what ends up happening, whether you end up coming back with FanDuel, whatever they are now, or you end up going with your own media right deal and say you only bring in $10 million. Well, now you have a full year in which you brought back all the cut $70 million that you lost, and you get an idea of what you're going to end up making. Or the second thing is maybe they're just not saying the quiet part out loud. That they called this a refresh. What they really meant was it was a rebuild. And it's just tear it down to the studs and get all the opportunities for the young kids. When really it is, hey, we're just starting from scratch. We're probably not going to be very good. Hopefully we get a high pick and we can kind of start this rebuild process.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Both of them voted earlier this morning. Congratulations. Well done.
You didn't get your sticker, man? I
did.
I proudly put it
There it
in.
is. Good one.
Yeah.
I got a presidential seal. They handed it to me, and I was expecting the oval white one that just said I voted. And
Yeah,
she's
that's
like,
what I'm definitely going to get in St. Charles County later today.
see,
I got
ladies and gentlemen, look,
Mine-
this is the perks of Jefferson County.
Yeah, mine's boring.
Don't mind all the
compared to
water
his.
that we have
We're
right
going to
now.
get into our thoughts on Amendment 3 later on today. Excited to be able to discuss
we
that
are
with
not.
two of you.
John, I am not tied into that
John,
comment.
T-Bone and I will be stepping away from the studio at that
Coming up in
moment.
15 minutes, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters with some very controversial opinions on the Kansas City Chiefs from last night. We'll also get into some of the trades that have already been announced from earlier today and another one that is rumored to potentially be in play for later on this afternoon. Today is the NFL's trade deadline. We will not actually be talking about Amendment 3 for those of you that are
Yeah,
curious. So
people
we're not
people
doing
don't understand sarcasm, but that was real sarcasm. We are not discussing that.
We're not going there. Coming up next, last night felt like a rerun for Mizzou, and we got to talk a little bit about the other local college basketball teams as well. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time to unlock your inner champion. And the place to do that is at Victory Men's Health. They have all kinds of different potential options for you, whether that's weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. It's a struggle to do it on your own. They can potentially help you out. Low testosterone, erectile dysfunction. Maybe you want to learn a little bit about their red light therapy program. If you want to do that, check it out on their website. VictoryMen'sHealth.com. That's VictoryMen'sHealth.com. You can read up about all of the different options that they have available to you to unlock your inner champion. For me, I went over there, did the same thing that you guys do, which is book now on their website. Again, VictoryMen'sHealth.com. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them about how you heard about them. Say, BK on 101 ESPN told me about Victory Men's Health, and I would like to learn more. Do that over there. That's what I did. I went in, got my lab draw kit. They found out I'm good in my testosterone levels. However, I did have some significant vitamin deficiencies, so I did a couple other tests for me. They were able to unlock my inner champion. Do the same for you. Victory Men's Health and VictoryMen'sHealth.com. I didn't enjoy a second of watching that for Mizzou last night. Actually, that's not true.
What?
I did enjoy about 10 minutes. Midway through, so the way that I watched the games last night, Alex, I turn on the Mizzou game 7 o'clock, and then the football game starts like 7:20, right? So I watched the first 8 minutes of the Mizzou basketball game.
Ooh.
And I had that on the big screen. And the first 8 minutes were miserable. There was nothing fun to watch about that. Mizzou basketball began last night against Memphis. It was expected to be a close game. They were two teams that came into the year with a lot of questions about what they were going to be. There was a kid on Memphis that decided to transfer like hours before the game started because of an NIL
You can do that?
dispute.
You could transfer before the game starts?
Yeah, so that happened yesterday. Memphis is
Good
a
on
disaster.
him, man.
So Mizzou ends up the first 8 minutes incredibly ugly. Just no real flow to the game. It's going back and forth, missed shots, just bad, just all around bad. And then the next 10 minutes or so, Alex, I had turned on the Chiefs game on Monday Night Football. I'd put on the Mizzou game onto the small screen, right?
Yeah, that's what they deserved.
On the small screen, when I turned them over, dude, the next 10 minutes were unlike anything that I saw from Mizzou last year. They were flying up and down the court, fast breaks, dunks, Lob City. It was amazing to watch. It's like, oh, okay, this is the team that I've been sold during the offseason. They're playing better in transition. They look like they've got some real athletes on the team. This is what I was hoping for. They get to halftime, and they're on a bit of a run. And then in the second half, it all comes to a screeching halt. They don't defend. They don't rebound. They miss every open shot. The offense completely stagnates. There is nothing more in transition. Turnovers like crazy. It was like watching the 2023 team all over again. And so I left the game thinking to myself, this was just last year. Like I just watched the game that I saw 20 different times last season, and it happened to be the first game of the year. And now the frustrating part for Mizzou fans like myself is I'm not going to see them play another real team for another month, because their next 6-7 games are against Howard, Eastern Washington, Mississippi Valley, Pacific, Pine Bluff, and Lindenwood. No disrespect to Lindenwood.
Oh,
Those are their next 6 games until they finally go up against Cal. No, none of those are on the road. They're all at home. They don't go on the road again for a true road game until January 4th.
Yet
That's
somehow Mizzou football went to UMass.
that's good, because if Mizzou goes to Highland Arena, they will lose.
Alex,
Lions Den.
I found myself sad watching last night.
So you're sad, buddy?
Genuinely sad. T-Bone, what's your stat on Mizzou basketball?
They've have not won a game in the year of 2024. They've now lost 21 in a row, I believe it is. Their last win was like December 3rd of 2023.
Is that why you're sad? Because you literally have seen a year of losing for Mizzou basketball?
broken.
That's hard to do.
Look, I went and watched a 3- and 2-year-old dance last night for the first half, and when I got home and turned on the second half, the dance class was more entertaining than watching that Mizzou game. I didn't see the first half, so I didn't see the ugly start. I didn't see all I saw was Mizzou leading in the second half. And at one point, I think there was like 12 minutes left, they were up by 8 points. And then in a matter of 2 minutes, I saw that 8-point lead turn into a 2-point lead because they just kept heaving the ball backwards, couldn't handle a full court press by Memphis, couldn't even get the ball set up in the offensive. I felt like I was watching the Blues power play for a couple of seconds.
Oh, that's
couldn't even cross the half court line. And then as that game just continued, dude, Mizzou got
having flashbacks as he's talking about this.
Mizzou just got bullied. Like, they got bullied under the net. They got bullied when they stepped into the zone. Like, everything about that game, I don't know if Mizzou's got the ability to stay in SEC games this season.
I was told that Mark Mitchell was good at basketball. I didn't see it last night. Maybe that'll change.
You just got excited because he was from Duke.
Maybe. I mean, last year he played 29 minutes a night, averaged 12 and 6. Pretty good player.
Hide him behind good players.
There's a reason Duke didn't bring him back.
Fair. He was terrible last night, man. Yeah. Absolutely terrible. Turning the ball over left and right, and he wasn't even the worst one on the team.
Here we go.
What happened to Caleb Grill, man? I was told all year last year, this guy's going to be so good. He's going to be such a significant increase in terms of the three-point shooting for Mizzou. No siree. He missed seemingly every shot that he took last night. Turned the ball over every 5 seconds. He finished, I think, with 5 or 6 turnovers in the game. It was embarrassing. Just an embarrassing performance by Mizzou, especially in that second half, as you were referencing, Alex. I don't know what the leash looks like for Dennis Gates at Mizzou, but when you lose every game in conference play last year, you have to run out of runway at some point. That was a big game for Mizzou last night. And for them to lose that way, Not a good start, man. Not a good start for the Tigers. They might be able to get this thing back on track. They do have a very new team. Most of these guys are new faces, and they're working on their rotations and everything. Maybe that gets put together over the next 6 games prior to the game against Cal, and maybe they look a lot better going into conference play. Very possible, but didn't inspire a lot of confidence watching that last night.
Think of this. This might make you more sad, BK. Kim Anderson won 2 wins in the SEC and 3 wins in back-to-back years in the SEC. And Dennis Gates went over in the SEC.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all.
And you asked how long. I mean, Kim Anderson lasted 3 years.
I remember last year, about halfway through conference play, saying more likely to happen. Mizzou doesn't win an SEC game, or they win at least one.
Remember
I remember BK giving me that Tony snarky remark of, well, it's impossible to not win a conference game.
It's really hard.
And hey, they
not.
did it.
It's really
they might
hard.
go back-to-back years.
Wow, that would be impressive.
That's a school record
Dude,
right there.
It is so hard to do. It is really hard to lose every game in conference play.
One good thing for Mizzou is I saw a stat last night that of the Power 4 conferences, the only conference that had multiple losses last night was the SEC, and it was 4. So, hey, maybe it's a little weaker of a conference than we're expecting.
Can you have a bragging rights game if you don't even stand a chance?
Yeah, you guys just want to forfeit now.
I mean, I just saw Illinois put 116 up on Eastern Illinois. So
and people that cover the
let's talk
team,
about your squad.
People cover the team, so that was a 6 out of 10 performance by the Illini.
That was 116 points.
112. Let's be clear here.
Sorry. Those 4 points would have mattered for Mizzou.
All right, so we've got Casper, the freshman from overseas. He's amazing. We've got Will Riley, the freshman, top 15 prospect in the country. He put up 31 points last night. He looks like Coleman Hawkins with skill.
Yeah.
What? We're doing this now? Yeah, I'm in. I'm in on this Illinois team.
No, you get out of here.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
I want to see them against Bama.
Yeah, that's
2 weeks from now, they're going up against Bama. All right, let's see what you've got. They were playing fast last night. They got up and down the court. They've got real athletes on this team. They've got a point guard. They've got a guy that is 6'8" as a freshman. It looks very similar in terms of how he's built to Coleman Hawkins. Again, but has, I think, a lot more skill. Maybe not as good of a passer. We'll see with that. Hawkins was a really good passer. But Will Riley, in terms of his finishing ability and his shooting, okay. Yep, that looked the part. We'll see if it can continue, because that is not exactly the best team on your schedule. But Eastern Illinois, you should look like that against them. What's it look like against Bama? I want to see it.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they look like against Bama. They've got a decent non-con slate. Bama, Arkansas, Tennessee. In February, they've got Duke in a random non-con game. You're going to get a good test for this team, especially they get conference play going a little earlier than most conferences, but they were impressive last night. I was wondering how Brett Underwood would do this offseason going into a year in which it was, okay, now you finally have a huge turnover on your roster. Danger's casually just chilling at Memphis now. Hawkins left for Kansas State. Shannon, Damask, his 2 best players from a year ago, all graduated. And I wondered, okay, what's this going to look like? And look, it's a game against a cupcake. It looked impressive.
Yep. That's what it should look like. You can't learn a ton about your team, but you can learn bad things. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, did you learn a lot of bad yesterday?
Not yesterday, but last year against some of the bad teams that were on Mizzou's schedule. Oh, yeah. When Kim Anderson debuted and they lost against UMKC, I was pretty clear at that point in time. I was in the building watching that game, covering it for KTGR. I had graduated from Mizzou. That was my first year really covering the team day to day. It's I don't think this is going to work. I don't know what the finishing point's going to be.
They lost to last year. Was it Jackson State? Is that who it was that Mizzou lost to?
Yeah, 73-72.
Yeah. They lost to NC Central at one point. They've had some really bad losses over the years.
They only won by 8 versus Loyola, Maryland last year.
It's not good.
And Loyola, Maryland put 70 up on them.
Shot chart for the Illini in yesterday's game. Someone tweeted out and said that Brennan was going to want to frame this.
Dude, he's sad.
It was truly just in the paint, layups, and 3-point shots. That was it. That was the shot chart. They were getting to the basket.
That's what Mizzou's looked like as well. However, there's
a lot more X's.
Yeah. There's a shot attempts.
There was a lot of circles on this one that I saw.
Dude, there was a play last night for Mizzou where they took 3 chances underneath the net, and all 3 missed.
Yeah, and none of them were blocked. It was just misses. Legit layups that you should have in your bag if you're a college player, and they just whiffed.
They forgot to jump for rebounds, too. It was bad.
All right. The last thing that I wanted to get to from last night was SLU. Disappointing loss for them, but the loss really wasn't the story. I thought they played pretty well for the most part. Robbie Avila is the one that you're going to be talking about today, I would imagine. He ends up leaving the game with the ankle injury. He had previously had an ankle injury that kept him out of some of camp. That one lasted, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks that he was held out. If you expect similar timeline, it sounds like Josh Schertz said yesterday it's not looking good, probably pretty similar. That puts you out, let's say, until early December. You're potentially missing the next 7 or 8 games with him. There's a couple in there that are losable. Like you could lose against Loyola Marymount. You could lose against Wichita State. You could potentially lose against San Francisco. And if you lose any of those, you probably have to win the conference to have any real chance of being able to make the NCAA tournament. That's tough go of it for SLU. That was the worst case scenario. Forget losing the game. Losing your best player is what mattered there. This team's also just not deep at all. They have 6 guys that they can play, and now they have 5.
Yeah.
If they lose anybody else, they're in real trouble. They just do not have any depth.
And frankly, I got to imagine that's how they designed the team, to just have those 6 heavy guys that could carry you the first
I need
season.
more time to get the guys that can play at this level.
But when you lose, I mean, they were the team yesterday. I said, like, they're probably the most intriguing and exciting for me to watch. It doesn't matter, though, when you lose that big of a player for your team. That's the centerpiece for what you're trying to accomplish this season. And if he's down until December, you're going, it's A-10 tournament or bust now.
Yeah.
Right. He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we got to get into some NFL quick hitters. We've got a couple of trades that have been announced today, another one that could be announced by the end of the day, and how about that Chiefs win last night? You like that? We got to talk about Todd Bowles and the disastrous decision that he made at the end of the game. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they host the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. The Joey will join Chris Gerber for puck drop at 7. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's get into some NFL quick hitters. It is officially trade deadline day in the NFL. Alex, let's go through a few of these. We'll kind of go through these quick hitter style if you guys are good with it, as we do, as is the nature of the segment.
That's what it's called, quick hitters, NFL.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Go, man.
Wow. How ironic is that?
All right, first things first. The Dallas Cowboys have traded a 4th-round pick to the Carolina Panthers for Jonathan Mingo, one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL. Alex, what do you think?
Stupid. That's what I think. You don't have a quarterback. What are you getting, weapons for Cooper Rush? Somebody put together the comps in the trade. The Cowboys just traded a 4th-round draft pick for Jonathan Mingo, while the Chiefs traded a 5th-round draft pick for DeAndre Hopkins.
Correct.
Yeah, good. Good stuff, Jerry Jones. He's got that fire in his belly. And you just traded a 4th-round pick of a team that's probably going to be picking in the top 3.
Doesn't make any sense. I just don't get it.
Stupid.
I don't get it.
I don't either. I don't know what Jerry's doing. He's clearly lost his mind in Dallas.
All right, next big trade that has been announced today, the Detroit Lions, as was widely speculated, have traded for Zadarius Smith. I have not seen an official return on this. Have you guys seen what they're sending?
5th.
I haven't seen anything yet.
So a late-round pick in some capacity is what they'll be sending in return for Zadarius Smith. This one I do think is a difference maker. Oh, 5th-round pick.
Absolutely.
5th-round pick in 2025 and a 6th-round pick in 2026. So 2 late-round picks over the next couple of drafts. Alex, Zadarius Smith is a good player. Not a great one, but a good one. And I do think he's a potential difference maker for them. He has 5 sacks already on the season. This is a guy that consistently gets to double digits when he's healthy. What do you think of this, a potential replacement for Aiden Hutchinson?
I love this. He's not Aiden Hutchinson, but this is the next best thing. You had to get a pass rusher. Everything else about Detroit has been great this season. Their defense overall stepped up when they lost Aiden Hutchinson. But I think Zadarius Smith is just a madman. And so this piece going into a Dan Campbell system, this once again solidifies why I believe Detroit is the second best team in all of football this season.
It's such a smart move because you're right. You can't replace Hutchinson, but you can bring someone in and then kind of try and go by replacing him by committee. And the defense has really stepped up since he went out. Remember, I said, I think the week after he got hurt, hey, this is the end of the Lions. The defense hadn't been all that impressive. And they've picked up their game, and now they're getting a guy that can help them rush the passer. I love this deal for the Detroit Lions.
I'm a huge fan of it. I would like to see them add another pass rusher.
I was hoping they'd go real aggressive and get after Max Crosby, but the Raiders probably aren't getting rid of that dude.
He's not going to get traded.
I want a crazy man for Dan Campbell. That's what I want. And I think this is probably as close to it as you're going to get.
So the other one, and I want to continue along with this. This is a trade that has not been made yet, but it appears could be done by the end of the day. The New Orleans Saints, according to multiple reports now, are open to talks about in regards to cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, former Pro Bowl level cornerback. He's been wasting away now down in New Orleans. They've got serious cap issues over the next few seasons. They're going to need to go into a full-blown rebuild down there. Lattimore could get them a decent return, maybe a 3rd-round pick. According to Ian Rappaport, the Chiefs are in on Marshawn Lattimore. The Commanders are in on Marshawn Lattimore. He also added that there have been a couple of other teams that are potentially bidding for Lattimore services as well. I wonder if one of those teams could be the Detroit Lions, Alex. They could use another corner. They've got some young guys. It's been okay, but I think they would like to upgrade there, and this is a potential all-in season for them when it comes to the Super Bowl. If you're looking at it from a neutral perspective, who do you want to see get him? If you could see one team land Marshawn Lattimore. Commanders, Chiefs, Lions, maybe somebody else.
I mean, honestly, if I had to go off of one, it would be Detroit. Kansas City obviously solidifies your three-peat, but man, if Detroit could be in on this and you get a pass rusher and lock down your secondary that has improved since Aiden Hutchinson went down, you know that they've got one of the best offenses in the NFL. If I had to pick one team, mine would be Detroit, because that makes them all but a Super Bowl contender, in my opinion.
That's where I am as well. And it's twofold on the other teams why I don't want to see him go there. One, for Washington, I just don't think you're there yet.
Agreed.
They're making the smart decision of trying to push and trying to get this done. I just don't know if he's a guy that tilts them over the top to get them to the NFC Championship game or to the Super Bowl. I think they're 2 years away probably from really hitting that contending window. And I just don't want the Chiefs to get them. I hate the Chiefs. But
if there was a second team, Chiefs would be my second team.
I would pick Washington over the Chiefs. I just don't want to see the Chiefs continue to load up. I want to see them go to Detroit, because they are in that mode now where Washington will be in 2 years, where they need to push. And they are the team that once they solidify some of these moves, getting the pass rusher, adding a guy to their secondary, now you're going to be the favorite in the NFC if you're not already, and then have a chance to really go after the Super Bowl.
Baltimore.
That'd be a good one.
They desperately need cornerback help right now. Now, some of that is due to injury. Some of it is just they don't have good corners. They've got a really good slot corner, but they need some help on the outside. This is a team that should be going all in this season, because if you're ever going to have a team that can really win around Lamar Jackson, it's right now, man. They went out there and made a big trade to be able to get Deontay Johnson. Didn't have to give up much for him. They have Derrick Henry, added him in the offseason. It looks like the tight ends are really starting to come around. Mark Andrews has even been good over the last few weeks. Your defense has been solid, but this secondary, dude, is a problem for them right now. You've got to find a way to improve there. I don't know if they're going to be in on this or not, but that would be the team that I would point to. Obviously, as a Chiefs fan myself, I would love to see them go get Marcus Lattimore. I don't know how realistic it is, especially if they're going to have to give up a third-round pick. They have the Titans third. Titans are going to be drafting pretty high, I would imagine, because they got that in the L'Jarius Sneed trade. It's like a 37th overall pick, potentially. That's probably the best trade chip that anybody has to offer for Marcus Lattimore. It just depends on, are they willing to offer it or not? Because all these other teams are going to be late in the third round, so it would require them to give up a second-round pick to beat the Titans' third-round pick. Just comes down to, are the Chiefs willing to do that? I don't know. We will see. All right, the other trade that's been announced, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a small one, but I think a good one for the Bengals. Have traded a late-round pick for Khalil Herbert, the former Bears running back. He has not got a bunch of run this year, but I do think he's a good player. I think he can really help the Bengals. Biggest thing is if you're in fantasy football and you've got Chase Brown, this is somebody that'll take away a little bit of that work. They are without Zach Moss indefinitely, so this is a smart move, small move, but one you probably had to make.
Yeah, Chase Brown has been really good for them, but you need another one. They're not a team that can solely rely on one running back. They need multiple guys, so good move. Don't think it does anything, though.
Last thing here. Last night, Monday Night Football, Chiefs versus Bucks. First of all, great game. Really fun game to watch. Well played on both sides. The Bucks defense, I thought, actually did a pretty good job for the most part. They made things difficult for the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs ended up scoring 30 points for the first time in like almost a calendar year.
Somehow when it's like pouring rain the whole freaking game. Yeah. Unbelievable.
We've got to talk about the decision. Because
of LeBron James?
Todd Bowles did the thing that you just can't do, and he did it twice. First, 4th and 2. Tampa Bay 38-yard line. About 12 minutes left in the game. That would be a bold decision to go for it there. You're in your own side of the 50, but it's 4th and 2. You've been moving the ball pretty well for the most part that day. They decide to punt. Guess what happens? You're up. At that point, it was a tie game, 17-17. Chiefs go down to score on the very next possession. Boom, now you're down. More importantly, they score with 27 seconds left. They also took a stupid timeout. Whatever. They score with 27 seconds to go. If they kick the extra point, you've tied the game. You're now kicking off to the Chiefs. They have 3 timeouts in this scenario because you're dumb behind, took a timeout, which saved the Chiefs a timeout in that spot. They've got 3 timeouts, 30 seconds to potentially drive to get into field goal range. Or now you're putting it into overtime where if they get the coin toss, if they win the coin toss, they get the ball first and they could potentially drive down and score a touchdown and end the game there. You never see the ball again. You have to go for 2 in that spot.
Yep.
You have to. Because you're on the road. You're the underdog. You're giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes, who's played, I thought yesterday was the best game I've seen Mahomes play since the postseason last year. Your defense, secondary-wise, has no answers for what they're doing against you. Travis Kelce's getting open at will. DeAndre Hopkins getting open at will. Good luck. And Kareem Hunt in the second half was just dominant on the ground. Just interior offensive line, boom, coming right at you. They had no answers. Todd Bowles not going for 2 in that spot is why coaches, fall short against the Chiefs. And it's why John Harbaugh scares me. Dan Campbell scares me.
I love Dan Campbell.
Those dudes will be aggressive when it is necessary. And if you're going up against Mahomes, or if you previously were going up against Tom Brady, or teams going up against Josh Allen, you don't have to be aggressive at all times, but in certain spots, you have to take your chance. And your best shot there, if you're the Bucs, was to go for it for 2 yards, potentially take the lead and win the game. Your option was 2 yards for the win, or get a stop in the final 30 seconds, and then get another stop in overtime and have to score again. I'll take my chances with the 2 yards. I can't believe that they decided to do that. I was shocked as a Chiefs fan watching that.
This is why I love Dan Campbell. And this is why I know we got a lot of slack for it last year in the postseason when he was being aggressive. And frankly, it was their downfall when they were trying to get to the Super Bowl. But I love every moment. There's no thinking about it with Dan Campbell. If it's doable, he's going. And the entire team knows that if it's 4th and 2, hell, if it's 4th and 5, Dan Campbell's going to look at his roster and say, go, you got it. You show confidence in your team, and sometimes it doesn't work, but, man, sometimes you follow through. That was the moment that Todd Bowles should have looked at Baker Mayfield and said, you got us this far, go get us the 2 points, and let's close it down.
Yeah, and I'm more on the just go by the game flow when it comes to it. Some coaches like Campbell, to me, are too aggressive with it. I thought he cost himself in the playoffs last year by doing such a thing, and I think some coaches are too conservative with it. I thought last night's the spot where you got to go for it. To your point, BK, they hadn't stopped the Chiefs really all night. They'd been moving the football too well. Your offense, and let's just be honest about your offense. Baker Mayfield's playing maybe his best game of the season, and you don't have your wide receivers with you. Mike Evans is injured. Godwin is injured. That's the spot where you go for it. I don't mind the first scenario you laid out where it was that 4th down. You would have been going for it in your own territory. Yeah, I'd probably punt the ball as well. Too risky for my blood. But that one at the end of the game is the one for me where it is, I know we haven't been able to stop the Chiefs, and I'm not going to let it be a scenario where the Chiefs have their 3 timeouts, which is another big factor into that. And then if it does go to overtime, rely on a 50-50 coin toss. I thought he should have gone for it in the moment as well.
Somebody on the text line from the 314. By the way, we will get to questions and answers here in just a moment. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, the Bucs should not have gone for 2. If they're losing that game, you've got to lose it in overtime, not in regulation.
Because you get points in overtime.
I was going to say, it's not the NHL.
If you're losing, you're losing. I don't care how you lose. Try to win. This is the thing that always frustrates me so much with these decisions. People are like, oh, you got to push it overtime. You got to give yourself a chance. No, give yourself the best chance possible on 2 yards. Have the faith in your team to get 2 yards. If you don't, well, then you don't actually trust your team.
Yeah.
And you don't think you're a very good football team.
Well, and against any other team in the NFL, sure, take your chances in overtime. But like you said earlier, you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs. And not just those guys, but those guys that look like they turned it on this week.
And their defense, which has been really good this season. So now you're saying, I've got to stop that offense and get another big-time drive together against that defense if I even get the ball back, which they didn't. They never touched the ball again after that moment. Just a absolutely horrific decision. One of the worst coaching moves that you will see all season long. And I thought Todd Bowles overall, especially his offensive staff, dude, the game plan they came up with last night was spectacular. Cohen was in his bag, and that guy's going to be a head coach candidate this offseason because of that game specifically. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Questions and answers coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. If you are in the market for a new company to take care of your old unit, then it's time to call Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926. A 4.8 rating up on Google reviews that have over 3,000 reviews talking about the incredible customer service, the knowledgeable technicians, and the quick responses when issues arise. Take, for example, this one from Diane. Eric was out within hours calling that our AC was out. We're new to the area, called after a recommendation from our neighbor. Eric answered every question we had and felt that he was very honest. We will be asking for him by name the next time we need a cleaning and when we flip our heater on. So be like the thousands of people who have called Classic Air Care and put that positive review up on Google reviews about Classic Air Care's great work. Whether you need to be a part of their maintenance agreement to take care of your old unit or if you're in the market for a new one, Classic Air Care is there to take care of you. Call them, or you could schedule online. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. It's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
It's done. The Commanders have decided to make a big move. They are pushing in this season, saying, hey, we've got a chance right now with Jaden Daniels. Let's not waste it. They have decided to trade for Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. He technically has 3 years of control. It's this year, the remainder of his contract, and then it's effectively 2 years of club options at $18 million per season. It's kind of the way that it works after this trade. My guess is the Commanders will probably end up extending him.
Yeah.
Because you can work off of that deal and get a better deal for the team where it's lower cap hit, but that's all nerdy stuff that nobody cares about right now. Moral of the story, Saints trading Pro Bowl level cornerback Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders. We'll get to your questions. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line here in just a moment. Alex, your rapid reaction to this big move by the Commanders is what?
Good for them. I was just telling you in the commercial break, like for the Commanders, this, if anything, it shows your team that you're willing to invest when you feel like you have a chance to win. And this is a young group now with a very young quarterback, but in 1 year for a organization that has been viewed as just an ish show, one season to where they've turned it around. You find your franchise quarterback. This is ownership looking at them saying, we will invest in you if you show us you're ready to win. I appreciate these types of teams when they know they have a good roster.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense for them because, look, I still think they're probably 2 years away, even with this acquisition, from being like true elite contenders in the NFC and for a Super Bowl. But to your point, BK, now you got you bring them in, you get a chance to potentially extend them in the offseason, figure out all the nerdy numbers. You got 2 years of control with them after this year. It makes a ton of sense for a team that is still in the building process. I love the move.
I'm with you guys. I like it when teams push before they're technically supposed to be ready. If you feel like you're at the front end of your winning window, we see how quickly the stuff can close, man. Look at I know technically they still have a good record, but look at the Texans this year. Mm-hmm. Do you think they wish they pushed a little bit more last season? They did everything they could in the offseason to push this year, and then Stephon Diggs got hurt. The defense hasn't come together the way that they hoped, and the offense took a massive step back. Nico Collins got hurt as well. You've really got to go for it. The Bengals, right? They had that one season where everything came together around Joe Burrow. They got to the Super Bowl, didn't win it, but got to the Super Bowl and haven't really been back ever since in any meaningful way. If you're the Commanders and you've got a chance to do it this year, and you look around what's happening in your division, in your conference, Cowboys have fallen apart. I don't think the Eagles are a very good team. I know they're 6-2, but their coach is going to screw this up for them.
Yep.
You got to go for it. You got to give it a chance.
Second best team in the NFC? Now that you've seen the Packers lose / Jordan Love be injured?
I would take the Packers if I've got Love at full strength.
Yeah. I think they're third.
It's close enough to where you could make a case, and I would totally hear you on it.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have to give like with Lattimore, maybe you are.
Yeah.
Maybe you are
that's kind of what I mean, yeah.
Team.
You bring in somebody that solidifies, because the one thing about them is their defense has struggled at times, and now you lock that down with an all-pro cornerback.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. Guys, who do you think needs to step up for the Blues with all of these injuries right now?
Everyone. Yeah. I mean, like, so like if you're going on the defensive side, P.O. Joseph. P.O. Joseph gets an opportunity, and I was just looking at some of his numbers because we're going to talk about him on pregame tonight, but his first full season when he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins, he put up like 30 points, was a +8. He got like Calder Trophy votes. They need that guy to show himself 2 years later. You're going to be eating, if you're P.O. Joseph, hopefully 18 to 19 minutes a night. But, I mean, right now, you're going to have to find goals in very different ways than what you're used to, meaning go stand in front of the net and hope it bounces off of your butt. And your goaltenders have to be huge. So, like, every area of your team has to be perfect when you lose guys like Broberg and Thomas.
Yeah, I think in this stretch, it comes down to your highest players, paid players. We've talked about them. I mean, Kyrou, Booch, Shen, Parayko has been pretty good all season long, to be honest. But, like, all your highest paid players, they've got to play up to their contracts now, and probably actually beyond that, since you've lost to Broberg and you've lost to Thomas, two just pillars for this team.
For anybody who has doubted Colton Parayko as a number one defenseman, you're about to either learn the lesson against what you believe or for what you believe, because he's going to be eating 28 minutes a night consistently.
Yeah, I would say it's, for me, the goaltenders. Those are the two that I would point to. They're going to have to be amazing, because you're going to give up some high-danger chances. That's just the reality. You don't have guys right now that are in places that are where they should be. It's the old Peter principle. They're being asked to be one position higher than what they should be for a lot of guys right now in this lineup. I don't feel great about where you're at. I don't think the team feels great about where they're at. It's just the truth of the matter. And it's going to come down to whether or not your goalies are able to mask some of those deficiencies. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. In 15 minutes, we're talking to Jeremy Rutherford. He's the Blues insider for The Athletic. He joins us each and every Tuesday here on the show. But coming up next, Gerrit Cole made an interesting decision over the weekend, and then yesterday decided to reverse course. What do we make of that? What does it say about the Major League Baseball free agency market this offseason? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, there was a big decision that was made over the last couple of days with Gerrit Cole. Originally, he was like, I'm opting out. I don't want to do this anymore. I can get a better deal either with the Yankees or elsewhere. The Yankees then had the right to say, okay, we see what you're doing there, Gerrit Cole. We like what you've done for us in the past. We can add an extra year at $36 million to your for current contract. And based upon the language in his deal, they just basically give him a 5-year contract that remains for $180 million. The Yankees said, not doing that. And Gerrit Cole said, wait, what? What do you mean you're not going to add the extra year on my contract? I'm 34 years old. You don't want to pay me for the next 5 years instead of 4? And the Yankees said, no. Go to market. Good luck. Find a better deal elsewhere.
We'll see you soon.
And Gerrit Cole and his agent, Scott Boras, effectively said, what if we had a do-over here? Could we not opt out of this deal? Are you guys still good with that? Everybody good with the current situation? Let's go back to that 4-year contract that I was already on. Is everybody good? Everybody good? All right, cool. And the Yankees said, great to have you back, Gerrit Cole. Thanks so much for doing business with us. Alex, I find this to be fascinating because Gerrit Cole, even in what was considered to be a quote-unquote down year for him last year, was awesome. He was hurt, but in 17 starts had a 3.4 ERA. We all saw what he was capable of doing in the postseason as well. Had a really good postseason for them. Gerrit Cole is still one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And he was set to hit the free agency market this offseason if he wanted to. And the Yankees said, we don't think you can get a better deal elsewhere. And he then said, and Scott Boras then said,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're right, dog.
After looking at the deals, I think that the Yankees might be the best spot for us on the old deal that we already had. That rarely happens, where the market does not escalate in a way where these guys can get a better deal elsewhere. Most of the time, if you're an elite pitcher, an elite player, you can get a better deal after you signed that past deal. So what do you make of this? What does it say? The Cardinals aren't interested in any of this market, so it's not going to necessarily affect the Cardinals locally. However, them being out of the market, I do think speaks to where a lot of teams are right now because of the RSNs. What does this mean that Gerrit Cole decided to go back on his word and come back to the Yankees because there was no better deal elsewhere?
I think it speaks to what this free agency is going to look like. And frankly, the team that has assets to trade are in a better position than a team or a player that's going to free agency. A part of me wonders if this was Scott Boras looking at what happened last year also and being like, hey, we don't want to get into the same position that you were in, or that Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery were in last year, to where this goes up to the final minute because nobody's willing to give you the money that you want. Then you get to camp late. You're only a 1-year deal. You don't look right, and then things fall apart quickly. If I'm a free agent, I need to, 1, get a deal done quick, and 2, I need to understand that we're not getting paid like we thought you were going to be. You could be the top pitcher, but unless another team just believes you're night and day better than anybody else, your best opportunity to make the most money might be with the team that you were already on. So I really wonder, and I was reading one of the Pittsburgh Pirates beat writer put just kind of a projections that he put out, John Parado. I think on the 25 top free agents, I want to say 18 or 19 of them were all re-signing with their previous team. I really wonder if that takes place this year, to where a lot of these free agents just go back to where they were because that team was willing to offer more than any free agent team was.
Yeah, I think this shows you right now, just the MLB offseason as a whole is truly going to suck, both for the players and both from a fan's perspective. And the reason I say that is, if I'm a player, I honestly would have told Blake Snell to opt into his contract with the San Francisco Giants, because I don't know that there's going to be a bunch of big spenders. And to Alex's point, when you get all these guys that are at the top of this free agent class, look, Juan Soto's going to get his money. Corbin Burns is going to get his money.
Absolutely.
Bregman will probably get his money. But when you get to like that max Fried range, I wonder what deals those guys are going to get, because at some point, the chairs start to fill up and you start to run out of a seat at the table. And the reason I say that is there's very few going to be big spenders. Philly's going to bring up their payroll, they announced yesterday. You know, you expect some of these typical teams. Yeah, like you expect the Yankees are going to bring up their payroll, but you don't have those middle-tier markets that are probably going to do that. Like the Cardinals, who could say in years past, hey, we're going to add a little bit to ours. That didn't necessarily mean they're going to go out and get the big Juan Soto contract, but they would settle for that kind of Max Fried kind of range of a contract, and maybe a little bit below that. I just don't see where the spenders are this year because of the RSN situation. And I think what that's going to lead to is, I mean, there was the report, I think it was in Derek Gould's piece today. There are GMs currently at the GM meetings going, we have no idea what our payroll is going to be next year. Yeah. And we're starting the
teams that
offseason.
could be aggressive that are going to have to choose not to be.
Yeah.
Like the Cardinals in previous iterations of the team probably would have gone out and signed, I don't know, they would have been interested in like Pete Alonso. I don't know that they would have ended up acquiring him. My guess would have been no. But they might have been at least involved on the outside looking in of those conversations. And if he had to settle for $25 million, something like that, maybe they would have been interested in a deal like that. Anthony Santander, that's exactly the kind of guy that I would have expected the Cardinals to be interested in this offseason. And instead, there's just no chance that they end up getting involved in that. Maybe they would have been involved in one of the pitchers, Nick Pivetta, Luis Severino, Shane Bieber, like those kinds of conversations, that mid-tier market. That's where the Cardinals typically shop. And instead, this offseason, they're just not going to be involved in it. That takes out a bidder for some of these players. It's the same thing for the Cincinnati Reds, who are reportedly in these kinds of situations.
Texas Rangers.
Texas is involved in this kind of a problem right now.
Minnesota.
San Diego, I would imagine, is probably not going to be involved in a lot of the high stakes type of bidding. They'll be in on the mid-tier market again, but there's a lot of teams that previously would have had some interest in some of these guys beyond the top 6 or 7 free agents that are just not going to be involved anymore. And that's the worst case scenario if you're a player, because you need the bidding war. It's the only way that you can up the ante on your price is you can get an extra year. You can get a couple extra $1 million on AAV. That's what happened with, what's his face? Dexter Fowler when the Cardinals signed him. They were willing to go to 5 years. Other teams wanted him at 4, so they get the player. Brett Cecil, they were willing to give the extra year on that contract. Now, these didn't work out for the team, obviously, but they give the extra year as the bidding war continues to escalate to get the guys signed early so they can then move on to their other offseason decisions. I fear that this is going to be a long offseason for some of these players, similar to what we saw last year with Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery, because you're dealing with some of the similar types of circumstances. And I also fear that you're going to have some players that leave this offseason very frustrated with where their markets were, and some of them probably will end up getting bad advice to continue to hold out. I'd be taking a deal. I am pro player, very much so. I hope you guys, if you've listened to this show for any period of time, you know that. If I'm an agent this offseason, take the best deal that you can as early as you can, because this money's going to dry up, and there's not going to be a bunch of teams just waiting around to collect the stars that remain.
And to just put this in the Cardinals' perspective, this is why as a trade destination, this is going to be huge for you, because if these free agents are still asking for so much money and you've got players that are less, or you're willing to eat money in the contract, this is, if I'm a team that's wanting to hit the free agent market, I'm going here first. I'm going to teams to find out, are you willing to trade? Because I don't want to drop $35 million that this guy's asking. I'll take this guy for $25 million.
The other thing, term becomes so much more important.
Totally.
Like fewer years.
4 or 5 versus 2.
Because yes, right now there are certain teams that are stuck with their RSN deals that don't know what the situation is for next year. There's other teams, like the Atlanta Braves, for example. They're going to get all of their money next year from Bally. How long is that going to be the case, though? You can't possibly, if you're the Atlanta Braves, think, hey, 3 years from now, we're just fine. We'll be totally good. This will never affect us. No, it's pie in the sky type of thinking. A lot of these teams have to be imagining, okay, we can prepare for this upcoming year, but beyond that, we just don't know. So a guy like Steven Matz makes a lot of sense, right? You can get these players that have shorter term deals, and we can get out of it after the season. This is what the Cardinals did last year. We all saw it at the time, what they were doing. 1 year deal with Lance Lynn, 1 year deal with Kyle Gibson with a team option. First year, super cheap for Sonny Gray. Then it gets a little bit more bloated because we can move on from these other deals, and we can still probably go ahead and trade Sonny Gray at $25, $30 million if we need to when we get there. The Cardinals were prepared for this if the day were to come where they didn't have the Bally contract ready to go for next season. Other teams are going to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I think Matt's is one where, like, that $11 million, like Severino's going to get like $18 million, $15 million on a 4-year deal. I think teams can look at the Mats one, and that one is a little easier to trade. Sonny Gray, if that's one, like if that is one they're going to explore, to me that's one where you almost got to get it done pretty quick.
Totally.
Because sure, it is only 2 years and it is around that $25, $30 million, and you can make it a little less by eating some of it. You also don't want to be just to the same point in the free agent market. You don't want the big spenders to go away by spending that money on free agency, and then you're stuck with a $30 million guy. And a team like Cincinnati, we'll just use them as an example. They were tied to him last time in free agency. They're not going to look at Sonny Gray and they'll go, we don't care that it's 2 years. We can't bring in $30 million. Unlike the Yankees, the Dodgers, teams that could have that interest. If you're going to trade Sonny Gray, you're going to trade even Contreras might fall a little bit into this. You got to go quickly on it.
Agreed.
It's got to be a move that happens quick before some of the chairs start to get filled up by the free agents.
With Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Jeremy Rutherford is our Blues insider. We'll ask him the question that we're going to talk about in the 1 o'clock hour. Can the Blues win low-scoring affairs without Philip Broberg in the lineup, without Robert Thomas in the lineup? We'll talk to JR about that, how this team adjusts to the life without Philip Broberg next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK with Alex Ferrario for our friends at Circus Sports in Illinois. If you haven't downloaded the app, today is the day to do so. You're going to be winning money better over there than you can on FanDuel, DraftKings, etc. They recommend check those places out. They believe that you will find that you'll get the best odds and you'll win the most money possible with Circus Sports in Illinois. For Thursday Night Football this week, we actually got a good game. Bengals versus the Baltimore Ravens is a 6-point line. I don't really want to touch that. I would rather go over to the money line. And I know it's aggressive to bet on the Bengals at this point in the season, especially against the Ravens. But I'm going to do that. Money line plus 235 over on Circus Sports. On FanDuel, plus 210. So if I bet $10, I'm winning 23 over on Circa. I'm winning 21 over on FanDuel. Alex, I win the most money possible with Circa.
You used the key word there, BK, aggressive. You got to be aggressive when you're over at Circa Sports because you're bringing in the most money possible. Also, those future bets, you're going to bring in the most money there as well. Why? Because Circa keeps as little money as possible on those large market bets. So get aggressive. Throw a 15-leg parlay together like Ferrario does to try and bring in the most you can thanks to Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford. He's the Blues insider for The Athletic. He joins us each and every Tuesday here on 101 ESPN. JR, we appreciate the time as always. How you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, doing well down here at Enterprise Center now. And you guys know our good friend from The Athletic, Contreras,
Yes.
covers a lot of Major League Baseball. He did a story last year at The Athletic where he had his 11-year-old son come up with some questions and ask MLB players, and it turned out to be a pretty good article. So they've got me working on that piece for the NHL. My 15-year-old daughter came up with some questions, and I just went in the Tampa locker room. And this is the first time I've ever heard this. After I asked a bunch of questions, the player actually said, good stuff, good questions. So,
Okay, so what were some of the questions?
I'm not used to hearing that.
Give us an example, JR.
I want to peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, so one of them was if you could have a superpower in addition to your athletic ability, what would it be? And the player I talked to today was Cam Atkinson, and his response was, I want to be invisible so I can just pop up somewhere on the ice and have a backdoor tap in. So some good stuff. And he was actually, there was another question, is what's the most bizarre fan interaction you've ever had? And he was the player, I don't know if you guys recall the story in Columbus, where a girl said, if you score a goal, would you buy me a dog? And he had a hat trick that night, so he actually had to buy her a Labrador. And he's actually met the dog a couple times, so pretty cool story behind that one.
How did he not buy her 3 dogs? She asked for a goal. If you scored 3.
He said that, too. He goes, I couldn't buy her 3 dogs. I'll buy her 1.
Yeah, the parents were probably like, please, God, don't buy the 3 dogs.
If he were invisible, he could just cherry pick all day, too, right? Like, you wouldn't have to worry about any offsides.
Yeah, that's better. That's better than called Alex Ovechkin. You just stand up there at the blue line and you just get all the free pucks.
Yeah, Brett Hall. We say Brett Hall in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah, that's
Alex,
right. Sorry.
Yeah, Alex.
Oh, I thought it was a Cairo.
Sorry.
Us
Whoa.
natives here in St. Louis.
Sorry, one of them's about to break Wayne Gretzky's record. Apologies for going to that distance.
Holy could have, you know.
Holy absolutely could have if he would have just got to stay in St. Louis. Damn GM at the
All
time.
right,
You
Jay,
know?
let's get into some Blues talk. So the
Yep.
Blues are going to be without Philip Broberg for the next 4 to 6 weeks. How does this change the way that they have to go about playing? The reason why I'm asking this, JR, because it feels like the Blues have kind of found, okay, we're a low-scoring team. We got to win games 3-2, 2-1. That's the way that we can go about this. Are they capable of winning that way without Philip Broberg in the lineup?
Yeah, if I'm being realistic, I say that's going to be tough to say yes to that question because he's doing so much. I mean, the offense has kind of been a surprise, but defensively, he's just been phenomenal. Justin Falk has had a bounce-back season for sure. The two of them together have been great. Colton Parayko's been great. You know, I think there's been some question we all know about that third pair. And you've gotten some good games out of P.O. Joseph. You got some good games out of each of the other guys with Kessel and Perinovich, but also they've had some hiccups. And so I think if I were to sit here and have watched the first 12 games and saw some really good, consistent play out of that third pair, then I say, okay, you know, maybe the Blues have a chance to be able to withstand the next 4 or 6 weeks. Now, don't get me wrong. I get these guys don't play 15, 20, 22 minutes a night, but they're still going to have to contribute because you can't have Parayko and these guys playing 30 minutes. So I think for the Blues, who have been low-scoring, to now try to win these 2-1, 1-0, 3-2 games, I think it's going to be really hard without Philip Broberg.
JR, with Broberg's injury, with Robert Thomas's injury, and frankly with Joseph and Leddy, 2 players that were supposed to be a part of this team, how much do these injuries set back the Blues in terms of evaluating the progress out of a retool?
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. But I think that the injuries only being 4 to 6 weeks for Thomas and Broberg, you know, it's not the entire season. So I think, you know, as we sit here in early November, you look and you say it's tough. It's going to be hard to play without these guys, you know, until Christmas time. But I think big scope of things, when you look back in January and February, they're back in the lineup, you know, cross your fingers, and the team's getting an evaluation, not only on them, but how the team looks with all the new faces they have this year. So it has been a work in progress. Like, I'll give you that for sure. You know, that's the one thing I asked Drew Bannister about today. You know, how can you get some traction where when you play the way you did against Toronto the last 2 games against the Leafs, and when you come together, you're playing for each other, you know, there's some scrums, guys are sticking up for each other. Like, how can you build on that? And that's what he wants to see here tonight. You know, he wants some carryover from that Toronto game. You know, if they can scrap together some games and you know, fare well without those 2 for 4 weeks, you know, maybe they can keep themselves in contention here. But I do believe big picture, we'll still be able to evaluate this team once those guys get back.
Alex, JR, I'm contractually obligated to ask you about Jordan Kyrou anytime that you're on the show. That's just the way that this
That's
works.
in the contract, isn't it? Right.
I thought he was really good over the weekend against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I am alone in this regard. I think he's been pretty good for the most part this season, despite the lack of goals that had taken place. Basically a sandwich right now where he had two in the first game and then one in the last game that we've seen. What have you seen from Jordan Kyrou's overall game, and how much emphasis are you going to put on his production while they're without Robert Thomas and Philip Broberg?
Yeah, he's really got to rise to the occasion, which is tough when you're minus Thomas. And I know those guys haven't played together a ton this season, talking about Kyrou and Thomas, but he has to step up, and he's got to be that type of player for the Blues, not only without those players, but this season. What have I thought about him? I think that I like the way he's played for the most part. The only thing I would say in contrast is what Drew Bannister said a week or two ago is more shots. Let's shoot the puck. Let's not pass up on these shots. And I think once they, communicated that to him again, he did. He was shooting a lot of pucks. Now, we can debate these pucks that are hitting the post and going out. He's got 3 of them. That's tied for second in the league so far after 12 games. If 2 or all 3 of them go in, we're talking about a few more goals. So I understand kind of the disappointment and the lack of scoring. If you're that type of player, you can't go 8, 9, 10 games without a goal. But I think for the most part, the other areas of his game that we want to continue to see getting better, the compete, and what Drew Bannister said, being a team-first player, I think we've seen that from him.
So it's hard to just pinpoint one player, JR, but for the next however many games, 4 to 6 weeks when this team is without both Broberg and Robert Thomas, and who knows with Matthew Joseph and Nick Leddy, who do you hone in on if you're a fan watching this team perform?
Yeah, I think, Alex, we talked about it when we recorded the podcast this morning. What I'm looking for, obviously you want to win some games here, but I'm looking at development. And so when you look at this next stretch of games and you're trying to hone in on guys, I'm looking at guys like Zach Bolduc. Is he a piece of this in the future? Obviously a guy like Jake Neighbors established himself last year, but you still want to see some more growth out of him. What do these guys do when they see this opportunity with some of the key guys out? I'm not saying P.O. Joseph is a guy that's going to be here long term or be a big part of things, but now he's going to be in the second pair with Justin Falk. So here's another guy defensively that I think you're going to want to see, how does he respond to this situation? So, there's going to be a number of guys that are going to have to play a lot better than they have during the first 12 games over this next month and a half.
Hey, JR, we appreciate the time as always, man. I know it's a really busy day for really everybody, but certainly for you as well, covering the team plus everything that's going on. Big day here in the country. So thanks for the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yeah, good questions, guys. Good questions.
We appreciate you doing that. Doesn't happen very often, so thanks for doing it, JR.
All right, see you later.
Take it easy. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on the Callier and Thompson hotline on 101 ESPN. Alex, we're going to talk about that Jordan Kyrou thing here in just a little bit. It's going to be a focus on him, right? Kyrou, Booch, Parayko, Benner. Those are going to be the players that we end up focusing the most on.
I mean, absolutely. Fairly or unfairly, however you want to view that, when you lose an impactful player, guess what you tend to do as a fan? You go to the next impactful player and you say, did you carry the team? And again, that might be unfair to look at Jordan Kyrou and say, hey, you got to carry the team now because there's no Robert Thomas, there's no Philip Broberg. And that's not just a task he should have to take himself. But every team does this. You lose your star and you say, cool, well, you're the next guy. And what is unfortunate for Jordan Kyrou is people are going to say, well, you got paid the same amount as Robert Thomas, so you got to perform like Robert Thomas. I mean, I don't look at one player. I look at the group of players. And they talked so much about the leadership of this team and how, they've invested in a lot more leaders in that locker room. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Booches, the Shens, the Kyrous, the Falks, the Paraykos, the Ryan Suters that were brought in, the Radek Foxes, the Sundqvists, the Benningtons. Like, I'm looking at the leadership core that you're telling us that has the ability to get this team in the playoffs. And yes, you lose a guy who's a potential 100-point player. Yes, you lose your stud defenseman. But you should be able to overcome something like that if you're coming out of the retool. So I don't put it all on Jordan Kyrou, but I do put it on the guys that are labeled the leadership of this team.
Yeah. I am fascinated to see what the response is because I think there's going to be a lot of criticism of Jordan Kyrou.
It's going to be a spotlight on him.
I don't know that it's going to be fair, but we'll talk about that coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Coming up next, the Kansas City Chiefs have officially transformed into the Patriots, and that is both the good and the bad that comes along with it. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Gerber for puck drop at 7. And today is the NFL trade deadline. The big move so far today is that the New Orleans Saints are trading cornerback Marshawn Lattimore to the Washington Commanders. This sports update is driven by Johnny Londoff, Chevrolet, and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, as I watched the game last night, Alex, I couldn't help but think to myself, the Chiefs have officially transformed into the New England Patriots. Now, they're doing it in kind of reverse order. They started out with like the 2007 version of the Patriots, where you had Randy Moss and this high-flying offense, and they're just going crazy, putting up these insane numbers offensively. And now the Chiefs have kind of gone backwards, where it's almost the early 2000s Patriots, T-Bone. These were the teams that you didn't see much of. You might have remembered hearing something about that Patriots-Rams Super Bowl, but other than that, it's really just a remember win for you. The Patriots early on were a defense and run-based team that happened to have a quarterback that you kind of believed in, but really Tom Brady didn't break out until like 2004. That's when he started to become the player that we eventually knew him to be. The Chiefs have that version of the defense plus the running game, but with Patrick Mahomes, who is a fully formed version of himself already. It's infuriating to watch if you're not a fan of the Chiefs. I have to imagine. It's got to be just the most frustrating thing in the world. And yet, they keep doing it. They don't blow anybody out. They've won almost every game this season by a score. They've won, I think it's 67% of their one-score games with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, which is the best winning percentage in NFL history for a quarterback in one-score games. Last night, everybody knew it was going to happen. Once the Bucs decided to go for the extra point in regulation, you knew what was going to happen next.
Yep.
Either the Chiefs would kick a field goal to win it in regulation, or we'd get to overtime and the Chiefs would score a touchdown and boom, game over. Baker Mayfield even knew it. I don't know if you guys were watching at that point, but as they did the coin toss, he saw that they had lost, and he immediately goes,
Yep.
head to the sky. We've seen this with the Blues after they miss a shot. It was the same feeling for Baker Mayfield because he knew game over. We are not getting this ball back. I will never see it again after we scored that touchdown to tie it up with 30 seconds left in regulation.
I'm surprised he didn't try and give it a kiss before Patrick took it.
The Chiefs have become the New England Patriots. My question for you guys, are they as hated as the Patriots were?
Man, that's tough for me to answer because when you said, like, I think a lot of people, if you're not a fan of the Chiefs, hate it. I'm, full disclosure, not a fan of the Chiefs. But I'm enjoying watching this. And maybe it's just the history side of it, of being able to potentially see a three-peat. Maybe it's just witnessing, like, the start and prime of Patrick Mahomes' career. Because, like, I don't remember. I was 11 when Tom Brady really started that run with the Patriots. So I only really remember the middle to back half of it. I don't remember the full thing. And I just think they have fun personalities to watch. Like, I like Travis Kelce. I like Andy Reid. Not so much Patrick Mahomes, but it's still interesting to watch how they find ways to do this. So I don't find them as hated as the Patriots because I didn't like the Patriots. And maybe some of that was the Rams ties with the cheating scandal and you just focused in on that. But they didn't have likable people. Like Bill Belichick was not a really fun person to watch. Tom Brady really wasn't that way. And then all of these guys that they kept cycling in, they weren't there very long. So I don't know. For me, I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are as hated as the Patriots were.
Yeah, I don't think they're as hated as the Patriots were. I hate the Chiefs, but I don't think they are, from a national perspective, as hated. Because I think you're right. I think, like, you look at Andy Reid. People kind of like Andy Reid. You look at Travis Kelce. People like the Kelce brothers. Patrick Mahomes is maybe the most hated guy on the team, and even he doesn't feel like he comes off as much as like Brady
boring.
did. Yeah, I don't think he gets as much hate as Tom Brady ever had. I think there are people that do hate him. I do think some people hate kind of his pouting towards the referees when he gets hit at times and some of the other stuff that he does. But for the most part, I don't think it's as bad as it ever was with Brady. So I don't think they are as hated as the New England Patriots.
Why do people hate Brady?
I don't know why people really ended up hating Brady. I never really got the hate towards Brady other than the cheating side of it. I think Deflategate was when it really turned into people hated Brady.
Was nothing.
But it
was a bunch of nothing.
I know. At the beginning of it, it never really felt like Brady was hated. And again, I don't remember it as much as some people might.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't early on. Early on, it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. This guy was a 6th-round pick that came out of nowhere. He was like a backup for most of his career. The story that we all know it to be, that was the early portion of the Brady career. I think eventually he just won so much that people were annoyed and he continued to be a story for 20 years.
And then you got the cheating side of it, where I think that put a lot of people on the other side of Tom Brady. And maybe it wasn't just Brady. Maybe it was just the Patriots in general.
I think that's it. I think that's what it was. I think people hate seeing a winner for that long. They want to see you knocked off. I mean, think about this in any walk of life, right? People don't like seeing anybody dominating their respective careers for too long. If you fly too close to the sun, eventually people are going to root for you to fail. We like the story up, but as a people, we really love the story coming down. Think about Tiger Woods, right? Think about any of the child stars that we've seen in this country. There's the upswing, and then there's almost always the downswing that follows with it. In sports, we see the same thing, where people want you to rise, and then once you get up there for too long, the Warriors, the Patriots, the Spurs, LeBron, generally speaking, we want you to come back down to earth. So I think we might be arriving there this year.
I think the three-peat would do it for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think after the three-peat.
I think the Chiefs last year, I started to feel it switch, where I was like, really? We're going to do this again? And now if you do it for the 3rd consecutive season and you've done it with many different iterations of the same team, and really it's just the tenets of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones and Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, those 5 that are there for the entirety of it all, I think that it is officially going to be, after this season, I'm sick of this. No more with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm sick of it. And yet, people are still watching, man. Because that game last night, that was awesome. You know why? Because if you hate the Chiefs, you were rooting like hell for the Bucs. If you love the Chiefs, you were rooting like hell for the Chiefs. And so it becomes this thing where everybody ends up by the second quarter of the game having a clear and defined side. And it almost becomes like watching an NCAA tournament game. This is part of what makes the tournament so special. You can have Lehigh going up against Duke, and by the second half, about 10 minutes left in the game, dude, you're either all in on Duke or you have never been a bigger Lehigh fan in your life. Like, that is your second team other than whoever it is that you normally root for. I am now a Lehigh fan. I have gone on Amazon and ordered a Lehigh shirt. Like, that's my squad, right? And that's how it feels sometimes watching these games when you're on social media and you see it. Like, wait, you're a Ravens fan. Why are you rooting for the Buccaneers right now? It's because they want the Chiefs to lose. That's a good thing for the sport. I think they need something like that. I'll be curious to see how long that sustains, how long you can keep having it, but I think it'll be similar to what we saw with the Patriots. The Chiefs are that good right now.
I love how you went back. Wasn't Lehigh the same year in which Mizzou lost as a 2 seed?
Maybe.
Yeah, listen, I love how you went back to...
Did that one on purpose.
Yeah, I love how you went back to that one. Yeah, boy. Really
Somebody said, we get it, DK.
Tigers.
You love the Chiefs. This has nothing to do with my love for the Chiefs.
I don't know, I just don't know where the hatred comes in for them, other than the fact that they're winning. But
it's that. It's that.
But again, man,
it's because they're talked about. They're winning. Like, people hate the Cowboys for different reasons. But the amount of
Cowboys don't back it up.
Agreed. But the Cowboys get the coverage. The Chiefs get the coverage. People hate the things that they hear the most about. Right. It's why people hate about politics on Election Day, because they hear so much about it,
man.
Like, you're just exhausted. You're nauseated by it, right? People are sick of hearing the election, the campaign advertising right now, because you've been hearing about it for 3 bleeping months, and it's all you see on your television. It's not because you necessarily hate the messages, although some people do for either side. You're just sick of hearing it. I think that's what it is with the Chiefs. Like, somebody on the text line said, people don't hate necessarily the Chiefs. They hate the Taylor Swift stuff. What stuff? Just the fact that she is dating one of the players on the team. Like, there is no stuff there.
Well, it is annoying watching the walk-in of Taylor Swift every single Chiefs game that has to be put on television.
Who cares?
Well, that's the thing. It's not going to ruin my watching experience.
5 seconds that would have otherwise been, like, instead of seeing Taylor Swift walk through the door, you'd see Patrick Mahomes in his suit that he wore that day.
Awful.
Who cares? Or here's another thing that you could do. Just don't watch the pregame. Just don't watch the pregame.
Yeah, that's where I would
you
recommend
go.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the club. I don't do that.
That is something, though, that rubs people the wrong way. I don't get it. It doesn't bother me at all. And it doesn't matter if it's my team or another team. That stuff I don't care at all. What the sideshow stuff is, I care about what's going on the field. But it is something that definitely rubs people the wrong way for whatever reason. And it adds to another element of this story. Giselle was a story in the Patriots thing, right? Like, she was a big story with Tom. There was that quote from her after one of the Super Bowls in which they lost where she said, Tom can't throw it and catch it too. There's always...
She's the worst.
She's now pregnant with her jiu-jitsu instructor. There's always the...
Whoa.
You not see that?
No.
Yeah, man.
Let's get into
Brady's
this.
got a lot going on in his life.
Now I know why Brady looked a little disheveled this past broadcast.
Somebody said, BK makes me hate the Chiefs. I don't know what it is about my fandom that would make you hate them. I
don't know. I maybe I wouldn't hate the Chiefs. I work with BK every day. I do feel like there's something about him always coming in and being like, man, how about that Patrick Mahomes? This is the best Mahomes has played.
Don't get me wrong. I hate the Chiefs when, they miss a false start. They miss a defensive pass interference.
I know. BK
they
always
call a flag on the quarterback getting pushed.
Denying that the refs aren't in their pocket.
Hey, they got
it's
lucky
just
last
ridiculous.
night. They got really lucky last night. There was a false start
They
on that
fixed the coin toss.
second play, the play right before they had
Two
scored.
heads on it.
Yeah, but your team is a
unbelievable.
bunch of cheaters.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten it out in the public yet.
Sure. If they were cheating, man, I could promise you that they would have been caught by now. Somebody else says, because you guys talk nonstop about them every day. I can promise you the Fast Lane talks about the Chiefs more than we do. Just flat out, they do.
Shots at the fast lane.
No, because they're the biggest story in the NFL. They're going for a three-peat this year. They are the last undefeated team in the regular season. If we didn't talk about them on this show, we wouldn't be doing our jobs. I'm sorry. They're the most local team, and they're the biggest story in the NFL. Not talking about them would be us being incompetent. And you could say a lot about us, and maybe we are incompetent in other ways. We can find the stories.
I'm never incompetent.
I just want to talk about the Cardinals' great offseason.
Can we talk real quick? I do want to give a little bit of credit to the... Can we talk about Baker Mayfield?
Just going to change like that.
No, man,
That
he's not a
guy's-
part of the Chiefs.
That guy's awesome, and he earned a ton of respect last night, at least from me. Not that he needs it, but him doing that without any of his wide receivers against that defense was unbelievably impressive. Seeing him have this kind of second career arc, it reminds me of like what we had seen from Geno Smith, but maybe even to a higher degree. Because Baker had this awesome start to his career in Cleveland where it's like, oh man, okay, they fixed their quarterback situation. That rookie season was a lot of fun to watch. And then it went poorly, and then he got back on track. That year 3 was like, okay, yeah, Baker's back, he's good to go. And then the injuries started to pile up. The stuff with Odell Beckham started to pile up, and it just went south for him quickly. They ended up trading him to Carolina. It didn't work there, obviously, because nothing works in Carolina. He gets traded to the Rams, has that unbelievable game where he brings them back on like 3 days of being with the team. And then, boom, moment that he got to Tampa Bay, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be what like the Gardner Minshew era is right now in Las Vegas. And it was the opposite. He was great for them last season. And this year, I think he might be even better than he was last year with Tampa Bay. That dude's a legit like top 12 quarterback in the league right now with the way that he's been playing.
He earned my respect in the postseason this past year. That game against Philadelphia and honestly versus Detroit that they lost, Baker Mayfield dragged his team back into the fight in that Detroit loss because he would just take the ball himself when things weren't open and say, fine, I'll do it myself. He's gotten a lot of slack, and you're right. A lot of this is because of Cleveland when you were just in a crap organization, when you were drafted so highly and expected to fix a franchise that has been bad for so long. But that Tampa season last year felt like it put him back on the map for people. But to me, it was the postseason for Tampa where he was the star in those 2 games of a team that probably shouldn't have been to the second round in the playoffs last season. And now it just feels like he's reassuring what everyone else was wondering last year was if this was real or if it was just a mirage.
Yeah, I think we saw this from Baker when he was with Cleveland. Now, was he consistent with it? Probably not, but I think that was some of the growing pains. I think Baker Mayfield, seeing him have success in Tampa Bay is like what we saw from Jack Flaherty this year and why he had success. He was hurt. That's why he really struggled in the back end of his time with Cleveland and when he was with Carolina. And Carolina was just a terrible run organization as well. He just had a shoulder injury, dealt with that shoulder injury there for that year in Cleveland. And I think that's the one thing that really kind of turned the Browns off was, oh, he's got the shoulder injury. This is actually what Baker Mayfield is. He's not a good quarterback. No, when he's healthy, man, he can sling it with the best of them. And I'm with you, Alex. He got a lot of respect for me in the postseason. He was really impressive last night. And to me, last night was the most impressive I've seen him in a couple of years because he didn't have his 2 best wide receivers. I thought the Bucs were going to get killed in that game, being honest. I told you to take the Chiefs on the -9 spread or whatever it was.
I told you the opposite. They never blow anybody out.
Yeah, you were spot on. But Baker is a big reason why they didn't blow them out last night because he was
100%.
awesome.
Yeah, he was great last night, and it's been impressive to see. They have a franchise quarterback in Tampa Bay. That deal that they signed him to is going to work out incredibly well.
It gives you opportunity to do other things with your team rather than being strung like a Dallas Cowboys team right now.
Absolutely. It was a really good deal, really smart move by them, and it's worked out. I don't think they thought it was going to work out this well. I don't think anybody believed that Baker Mayfield was going to be this caliber of quarterback, but it's been really good, and they're a legit playoff threat this season. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Got a question for you guys, and it relates to the big day today in our country with
Why
the
do you
election.
keep always bringing
Let's talk
this
about
up?
what I wanted to bring up. I didn't want to. BK kind of hoaxes me
Has
into this
nothing to do with
trash.
the politics side of things, I promise.
Okay.
What do you do if you've got a 1-year-old and you're trying to go vote and you got the 1-year-old with you? Are we just coming along together?
Yeah.
We're just getting this thing going?
I saw a dad with a young kid of his
There was
today
a mom
at
that
the
had 2
polling
of them
place.
today. I told, Katie.
Oh, 2 outmanned.
Well, try 3.
Good luck, dude.
I told, luckily my father-in-law was available to come over and let my wife leave the house because she was there with all the kids, and I'm obviously out all day today. But I told her it was so easy where I went. It's like, you could have probably just rolled in with the 3 of them. It took 5 minutes where I went to where walked in, got the sheet, filled it out, turned it in, and left.
If you were waiting like an hour, how do you think that? If you had the kids and you're waiting about an hour, how do you think that goes?
In the
not
rain,
good.
yeah, that one would be tough. You would have to wait until it's more convenient for you.
Man.
And it's not even about like you, because there are single parents out there, or parents where their significant other works a long hour day to where you are forced to do that. And I give you so much credit because, like,
100%.
having 3 of them, I've had to go places that you don't want to go with 3 kids, but there's no other option. In that circumstance, though, man, where you're supposed to be quiet and you've got multiple toddlers and you have to keep them occupied, God bless you if you have to do that, man, because that is tough.
He's wild now, too. He just wants to run everywhere. He's like, I got to be here, and never stops.
Is he loud, too?
It depends on the situation. Normally when he's around people, no.
Yeah,
He's got the
because
shy.
It'd be kind of awkward.
Mine has...
if he's loud enough.
Mine, they don't have the BK tone problem. They have just a tone problem to where there's no whisper. It's just
your kids.
Yeah, that's what I said. Mine.
I thought you were talking about your polling place. I was like, I'm
No.
like,
Well,
trying to
they have
understand.
tone problems too, I would imagine. But no.
They got to deal with some ish.
My 3-year-old and my 2-year-old, there's no volume down button. It's max or nothing. And so it's hard to go out in public.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, we waited in line for an hour and a half with our 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Just told them they'll be A-okay. I feel like we should, we have a new slide. That's Luca's favorite thing. It's a big one that he's in the house, right? Be in or out. We have it inside because look outside.
Good call.
I feel like we should just bring that with us. Just carry it along in the line.
Yeah, well, first of all, you were lucky if you've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old who allows you to hold them for that long.
Yeah, sure.
My 2-year-old won't allow me to hold her for more than 2 minutes.
I feel like polling places should be required to have like a jungle
slide.
gym
Yeah.
outside.
Well, a lot of
Playground.
them are at like schools. Like there's a
Sure.
playground
There was one
today
at ours
when I worked
today.
out because it was raining.
Yeah.
But I'm just picturing now, like I just picture waiting in line, and I hear this like dragging up behind somebody, and I like turn around, and here comes this guy carrying this slide with him with a 1-year-old in his other hand.
That's me.
I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would just find it hilarious.
I would be genius. Be like, congrats to you, man. That is smart parenting right
Lucas'
there.
new thing is he's trying to pick
Would you take
up-
my kid too?
I got 3 of them here, please.
Yeah, here. Hey, look, this guy brought a slide for everybody.
Lucas' new thing. He's trying to be the Incredible Hulk at home. He's trying to pick up the slide, and he gets really mad when he can't do it. So he's like trying to move it across the. This thing weighs like 30 or 40 pounds. There's no way that he could possibly do it.
Wait till he wants to start Hulk smashing your face.
So yeah, later today, if you see somebody walking around line
With
with
a
this
slide.
like 4-foot-long slide, just carrying it as we're going in, that's me. So I apologize.
I know there's anti-tablet and anti-like phone people out there, and hey, you parent the way that you need to parent. But those situations, whether you have 1, 2, or 3,
Do
you
what you
put them
gotta
in
do.
a stroller, you hand them the phone and say, I'm going to make an exception tonight because we need to get this done.
We've got a 4-hour drive. We're going to Kansas City this weekend for one of my best friends' baby showers. Luke is coming with us. It's our first one that we've done since like March with him on this kind of a long drive. And now he's getting more vocal and feeling his opinions more. He's not into tablets, Alex. He doesn't care about screens yet. We are in for a rude awakening this weekend.
Good luck.
I would say you need to pack as many toys to occupy him as possible and have.
And he's just going to throw them out of his car.
Do
seat.
you
That'd be
drive
great.
on those or does Kara drive? I would just let Kara know that you probably should just sit in the back seat next to him
No reason to even come up
you're
here
going to be
with me.
turning around a lot this road trip.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, if the Blues are capable of winning without Broberg and Thomas, how does it happen? Can they continue doing it the way that they had been previously, which is these low-scoring affairs? Talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's off of Chippewa, the famous frozen custard. And let me tell you, this place is incredible. You've been there before, but it's time to get back out there again. It's time to make those family traditions that I still remember to this day. 5, 6, 7 years old, we'd go to dinner on the hill. We'd pull up to Ted Drew's. Everyone would get excited. You'd buy the custard, and you'd just sit in the car and enjoy the time together. And it didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside or 50 degrees outside. It's always the perfect time to get that famous frozen custard. So many different flavors, so many different mixtures you can get. But here's the best part. It's a family-owned business. 4 generations, 95 years of families have been serving St. Louisans that famous frozen custard. And you could buy it in the quart size, which is a friendly reminder to buy those for all of the holidays that are coming up, to have some Ted Drew's to pull out of the freezer and have it ready for everyone. But while you're out there, walk across the parking lot, check out their gift shop. You could buy Ted Drew's apparel, you could buy Ted Drew's souvenir, and you could buy Ted Drew's gift cards. All available for you out at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard off of Chippewa. It really is good, guys and gals.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So how do the Blues go about this without Broberg and Thomas? So 2 of your best players, arguably your 2 best players this year, and not based on performance this season, just overall. Alex, I don't know that Thomas was off to a great start, so clarify that.
Broberg was your best player on the ice this season.
No doubt. And Thomas, I think, was going to eventually be your best forward. So best defenseman, best forward, not great that you're without both of them right now.
No, it's fine, man.
Previously, the way that they were going about it in their wins, it was low-scoring affairs, man. They allowed 2, 4, one off there, 0, 3, 1, 2. That's 2 goals allowed per game in their wins so far this year. It's not hard to figure out what the formula is for this team. It's goal suppression and take your chances otherwise, counterpunch type of a mentality, right? When you get the opportunity, get in on the forecheck. If you get the rush opportunities, hey, let's go. Let's get out in transition. Let's try to get our goals there. That's what the Blues have been at their best so far this season. Unfortunately, there have been other games where it's 4, 4, 5, 8 goals allowed, and that's just not a way that this team is capable of winning. They're not a team that can put up those kinds of goal numbers in individual games because they're just not skilled enough right now. So if you're going to win, you got to win with goal suppression. Alex Thomas is arguably your best defensive forward, though. And Broberg is your best defenseman right now. You have P.O. Joseph playing on your second pair defensively currently. Nick Leddy is still out. Matthew Joseph still out. How does this team go about winning without those two guys in the lineup, Broberg and Thomas?
Goaltending. I mean, that's the only answer for this. You go back and look at how they did it last year. They did it with a goalie who was top 5 in goals saved above expected. And that was a team that had zero offense. Now, I think this team, even without Robert Thomas and Broberg, still has more offensive ability than what last year's team did, mostly because you've got more depth. Like last year, if you would have plucked Robert Thomas out, that team probably would have finished with the least amount of goals in the National Hockey League. Now you've got a Dylan Holloway who's generating some more offense. You've got defensemen who are more involved offensively, which that could be a benefit for this team. But it all comes down to goaltending. It's the only way you're going to accomplish this. You know what this team's winning percentage was last year in 1-goal games?
Winning percentage last year in 1-goal games?
Yes.
Well, what was their overall winning percentage? They finished with...
Slightly above.
It was 92 points, so 561.
Okay, they're like
42.
I was gonna say like 40 or 35.
It was 65.
Wow, they won.
They were the
65% of their
second
one-goal
best
games?
team last season in 1-goal games.
Well, that screams regression, but
But you know how they did it?
Bouchard Center, 600 winning percentage.
Well, that's true. Welcome to your 600 winning percentage. But they did it with goaltending. So you're going to have to be stingy.
point.
You're going to have Parayko, Falk, Suter eat a ton of ice time, which might be sustainable, might not be sustainable. When you get Joseph and Leddy back, which you believe is going to be before Robert Thomas and Philip Broberg, now you've got more depth. This is going to come down to winning 2-1, 3-2 types of games. And honestly, it's not very dissimilar to how the Blues played that 2011-2012 season under Ken Hitchcock. They scored the 21st least amount of goals, so make this a little
Bottom
bit
10 in
easier.
the NHL.
Bottom 10 in the NHL in terms of goals scored. But you know how they did that? They had goalies who won the Jennings Trophy and Brian Elliott and Yaroslav Halak. You want to keep your head above water. You want to still be in a playoff spot when you get Thomas and Broberg back. Binnington and Hofer have to be the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League in this time.
no pressure, guys.
Yeah.
Just super easy.
They did it last year, though. They were both top 10 in goals saved above expected last season.
They were both excellent last year.
Yeah,
It's
Banner's
just a
been excellent
hard way
so
to
far
win.
this year.
And your defense in terms of goal suppression. Now, some of this is Broberg. How do they look without Broberg? But goal suppression has been a positive for this team this season.
I agree. I think they've been much better in that regard. I also would say Broberg was a big part of that. Joseph was a big part of that. Thomas, for all of his issues, I do think is a good forward defensively. And now you're without all three of those guys currently. Nick Leddy, who was not great. I was with everybody who was not super excited about his performance so far this year. He's better defenseman than P.O. Joseph.
Still eating 21 minutes a night to where you're not I mean, P.O. Joseph, the most he's eaten an average per game is like 15 minutes.
At their best, they had P.O. Joseph as the seventh defenseman. He's now in your second pair. They had Suter as a third pair defenseman. He's now playing top pair minutes every single night.
Which I'd argue is actually better for this team to have Suter up there.
Fair, but those guys were asked to be doing less previously. Now they're being asked to do much, much more, and they're doing it consistently. Eventually, that gets exposed.
Yeah.
I like what we've seen from Suter so far this year. Is he a long-term top pair option? I'm not so sure. Maybe. I'm pretty positive, though, that P.O. Joseph is not a second pair defenseman for you over the long haul. You said something, by the way, though, about you got to win with goaltending. Goaltending is the way that you can get through this because of the one-score games that they had last year. That reminds me so much of when Skip Schumacher, we had him on last year, I guess it would have been, 2023. And we asked him about the one-run games that they were winning so consistently. Cardinals did this last year. And he was like, hey, listen, you show me a team that's good in one-run games, I'll show you a good bullpen. That's ultimately what it is. Not about a manager. It's not about the offense. Not about anything. It's about, do you have a good bullpen? Cardinals had that this past year. Marlins had it 2 years ago. That's what the Blues are hoping to prove this year, is that they still do have that ability to be top 5 in the NHL in goaltending. It's just a really hard way to go about winning. The other thing that they're going to need is for their stars to step up. I think this is going to be so unfair, but it's going to happen. I can already see it coming, Alex. The Blues are going to struggle most likely over the next 4 weeks. And when they struggle, the focus is going to come on to Jordan Kyrou again. And it's going to be, well, he's paid like a star. Why can't he elevate his game without Robert Thomas in the lineup, without Broberg in the lineup? Why isn't he the one that is finding a way to keep us in these games? Alex, when that happens, I'm going to try to push back, and it's going to be hard because I'm going to get yelled at by the masses.
Yeah.
Guys, Jordan Kyrou can't save this team on his own. He can't. I think he's had a pretty good season so far this year, but this is Jordan Kyrou. I don't know how much better it's going to get than 10 points in 12 games and a better all-around game, you'll probably see some regression in a good way on a shooting percentage. He's at 7.5% now. I would expect that to get better over the course of the season. He probably should have like 4 or 5 goals instead of 3, which would put him at roughly a point per game pace. That's Kyrou. If you don't like this version of Jordan Kyrou, I don't think you're ever going to like him as a player. And I don't really know what to do with that because I think he's pretty good and he's a helpful piece. He's just not a top-line winger like he was sold as.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, any of the comps that you come up with right now, like let's take Colorado, for example. Colorado is without essentially 7 of their top 9 forwards. Has been for the last couple of games. They've been playing like defensemen in their top 6. Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar have been carrying that team. Hold on, don't get mad, because this is what I was going to say.
You're getting pre-mad again.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Jordan Kyrou is not Nathan MacKinnon
Never mind.
to carry this team.
Carry on.
Nathan MacKinnon typically plays 20 minutes a night in every scenario. Jordan Kyrou, if you go back to the Toronto Maple Leafs game, not this most recent one, but the one prior, everyone was talking about that was an incredible game by Kyrou. We opened up the show with Kyrou's play. Guess how many minutes he played in that game?
16.
16 minutes. He is not Nathan MacKinnon, which is why when you asked me after the JR thing, like, is this going to be a spotlight on Kyrou? Is it? Yes. Should it? No. Because it should be Kyrou, it should be Booch, it should be Shen, it should be, honestly, Neighbors and Saad, and Falk and Broberg, and Suter and Binnington, and Hofer. Like, this is not a one-man game right now. This is not the Edmonton Oilers that lost Connor McDavid, and then you look at Leon Draisaitl and say, please carry us, horse. We need to get through this. No, you were built as a pack mentality team. Now you have to embrace the pack mentality. And Kyrou can skate out of this looking like a gem for your team coming out of this retool. But he's got to stay consistent. It's not about point production. It's about consistency.
It is, though. It is about point production because people will...
To the outsiders, yes. To the people that just look at the stat card and say, oh, Kyrou didn't get any points in this one and he was a -2. Well, that's terrible.
Think about what the actual conversation has been about him recently, though. Prior to that Toronto game, it was he hasn't scored a goal since the opener. That's not consistent enough. And yet, I believe his performance has been more consistent this year than it has been at any point in his career. Yeah. But it just hasn't led to the goals, and so ultimately the stats do matter. And I get that. I don't blame any Blues fans for being frustrated. He's as frustrated as you are, I can promise you. But ultimately, the goals do matter. The points do matter because that's how he's judged. We look back on it, we're like, hey, are you worthy of the $88.5 million if you're not posting 70-plus points in a season?
Well, and to the mass Blues fans, you're right, because they're looking at it and saying, where's the goal production? But if you watch the game, what I mean by consistency...
Tone problem.
I wasn't speaking to BK.
No, it don't matter. That was the tone. And you caught yourself.
I've never said
Shame
that one before.
On you.
Damn, that one hurt. Actually, you're a bad influencer. But I mean, I'll be honest with this. If you're watching them,
oh, it's even worse.
The consistency in what I'm talking about isn't coming out of the game with 1 goal or 3 points. It's, are you putting the puck in the right position so you set your other team up? Because look, it was a blip on the radar for him against Philadelphia, and I don't blame him for that. But if you have 3 consecutive games when you're dealing with this and you're playing 20 minutes a night and you're putting the puck and you're turning it over in the neutral zone, that's where the inconsistency lies. If you give me 3 games of Toronto without scoring a goal, dude, I'm all on board with that because you played 20 minutes and you consistently put the puck in the right position. But you're right. It's going to come down to the point total, and I don't know if it should come down to the point total right now for Kyrou.
Yeah, I think Kyrou's been good this year. I think he's been playing much better. I think he's been more consistent. I think the point total will eventually come, and already he's at 10 through the first 12 games. Pretty damn good.
Yeah, but, I mean,
he's just not...
6 of them came in 3 games, so...
He's Alex T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes.
7 of your 12 have been a total of 4 points.
So in 7
9
games,
of your 12.
Points,
no, sorry. 9 of your 12. Bad math by me. 9 of your 12. He's had.
Again, this is how it works. You're going to have certain games. It's like a baseball player, right? He's going to have 4 hits in one game and go 0 for in the next 3. Over time, that's a 250 batting average, which is pretty much where a lot of the guys end up. There are streaky hitters. There are guys that get hits every night. It's about what do you get at the end of the season? How do you accumulate the numbers?
Stop it, PK. Watch the damn game.
Coming up next, better to forget it here on 101 ESPN.
Games.
314-399-9646 is the air comfort service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Let's start out with this one, boys. Bet it or forget it. Patrick Mahomes is currently the best bet to win NFL MVP this season. Lamar and Josh Allen are currently co-favorites at 3-1. Patrick Mahomes is next at 4.5 to 1.
Oh, I thought there was more to what you were saying.
It's like, are we...
Forget it.
We going to do this?
I would say Jared Goff. I would say Jared Goff over Patrick Mahomes because...
He's at 8 to 1 right now.
Yeah. His touchdown numbers might be through the roof by the end of the season. And if you're the best team in the NFC, I'll say Jared Goff. Better odds.
Yeah, I'm going to forget it as well because Goff was the first name I went to. Thought about Jaden Daniels for a minute, too, but I don't know if he's going to be able to catch a guy like Lamar or Josh Allen. I can see where Goff can catch him. I also, maybe I'm a little off kilter here. I don't think Mahomes should be the third best for MVP right now.
I mean, didn't he go like...
I would have him like fifth in my current
Didn't he go like 4 weeks without throwing a touchdown?
For a while there, he had more interceptions than touchdowns. All it is name recognition is all it is for Mahomes.
He's been really good the last
And if the
couple
team's
weeks.
undefeated, they're going to go, oh, well, Patrick Mahomes.
But
that's what I was going to ask.
Can we be honest about why the Chiefs are undefeated?
Defense.
It's not, yeah, exactly.
And Kareem Hunt saving their ass, essentially.
Yeah, it's not about Mahomes. Mahomes isn't the reason they're undefeated. It's their freaking defense, which is awesome.
Mahomes won them a game yesterday.
Sure.
But that's a
one
one-off. Exactly. That is not what the season has mostly been for them. I don't think he's been as good. I think Lamar is the best bet on the board. I know he's 3-1. Dude, he's been the best player in the NFL this year. There's no close second. He's been amazing. And I think that it's not going to matter when we get to the postseason. I still would take the Chiefs over the Ravens, but that's because it's Lamar against the Chiefs defense and Patrick Mahomes against the Ravens defense in a postseason setting. I'm going to take the Chiefs in that scenario. But if the Chiefs go undefeated, he wins it, right? Like if he goes 17-0.
I still don't think so.
I don't think so.
Really?
I think Lamar gets it.
Yeah. I think
that vote always comes down to how many touchdowns did you throw?
By the way, Circa now has odds on the Chiefs going 17-0 this year.
Oh, what are they?
What would you guess? 17-0 odds for the Chiefs to go 17-0 this year.
Oh, me.
God, they got to be high.
For context, they're 4-1 right now to win the Super Bowl. Their schedule remaining: Denver at home, on the road at Buffalo, on the road at Carolina, the Vegas Raiders, Chargers, at Cleveland, home for Houston, on the road to finish out the season against Pittsburgh and Denver.
You said it's what's win the Super Bowl? 400?
4-1.
I'll say 15-1.
I was going to go 10-1.
19-1.
Wow.
That feels about right. I mean, that schedule's not...
Can't wait till the Commanders beat them.
Yeah, that's
Or not the Commanders, the
Carolina.
Panthers. Damn it. That would have been funnier if I said it off the tongue right away.
I feel like Cleveland is the team.
What? Yeah. Are you kidding me?
No, I'm serious. I think there's a real chance they lose at Buffalo. Buffalo's a good team, and they could, on the road, if that was at home, I would have more faith in it. But that's definitely some real potential. The reason why I say Cleveland, on the road in December, ugly weather, and then you're getting ready for that weird 3-game stretch where the Chiefs, the Texans, and the Steelers, I think Cleveland as well, are all doing that thing where it's like Sunday game, Saturday game, Wednesday game, because they have to prepare for the Christmas Day, Wednesday game. So that's the start of that stretch where it's just going to be weird travel and whatnot. I could see them losing that game. I do not think they'll go undefeated. I do not think Patrick Mahomes will win the MVP. Alex, what do you have for us?
Guys, bet it or forget it. Colton Parayko will end the season with the most goals in his career.
What's his career high?
10. He said done it 3 times.
What's he already at now? 4?
He said 3.
I'll say forget it. He's on a hot streak right now. This is not me betting against Parayko having a good season, but he ends around there, 8-10.
Got to do some quick math while T-Bone comes up with this real quick. Go ahead, T-Bone.
I'll
Delay
stall.
a little bit.
I'll
Yeah,
stall.
please.
I will bet this
A little bit more.
because I think Parayko's getting more involved offensively, and now that he's playing up on the second power play unit, if his shot's for real and he's actually starting to get that more on goal and not like headhunting with his slap shot, I think there's a scenario where you can even see him potentially get some number 1 power play unit time. And like I said, I just think he's getting more involved in the rush more, getting more involved offensively. I can't tell you how many times I look up.
I actually don't think he's wrong there. Broberg was playing on the number 1 power play unit.
I can't tell you how many times I've looked up this season and I look up and I go, man, that's a big body in front of the net. Oh, what the? That's Colton Branco.
Dustin Byfuglien, again, I brought this up before. He did this with the Blackhawks. He was a defenseman that they used as a forward because he just would stand in front of the net, and the goalies were like this, trying to see around him. Yeah. So thank you for delaying, T-Bone, because I did my math. So last year, he had 154 shots on goal through 82 games, and that was around 1.8 per game. Now, early sample size. Slow down. Hey, I'm making a point here.
He rolled his eyes again.
Yeah, totally. He used his tone with his eyes. 2.2 shots per game right now. So if you continue with this, you're playing 28 minutes a night. Tone there.
No, seriously, that's a good stat.
That's good.
This is a guy that I think Bannister is telling, like, dude, please just get involved offensively. If you're taking 3 or more shots a game, which I think he's kind of been on pace for right now, I'd put it at about 15. I think he could get to 15.
It's actually a really interesting point, Alex, in all seriousness. The last time he took more than 2 shots per game on average was 2019. He finished with 175 that year. Yeah. Before that, 2018, he had 212 shots that season.
And remember, he wasn't viewed as a shutdown defenseman then. That was when they had Bouwmeester and Petro as your top pair.
Really interesting point.
I think he finishes, if you were to set the over-under...
You've convinced me, I'll bet it.
Thanks, man. If you were to put the over-under at 12.5, I'd say over. I think he gets to close to 15 this year.
T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. Sonny Gray will be the Cardinals' opening day starter in 2025.
Starting to think bet it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I agree with it. I think it's a bit of a strange decision given his age and his contract to bring him back next season. But I suppose you could make an argument that you want him around your young players and he has value there. And if he wants to be here, it's not like you need to get rid of him. So I think I'm going to bet it, even though it feels a little odd given where the Cardinals are at in their life cycle as a team.
I'm betting it as well. I don't think they should. I think you should move on from Sonny Gray. And I know we talked about just selling assets to sell assets. I would. And I would look at this as, hey, we keep a Michaelis on the roster because we can't move him. That's the guy that opens up for us, and then we fill everything else up with younger players. But I'm going to bet this because it seems the Cardinals aren't going to want to move him.
I'm still going to forget this. Said in Gould's piece, he's open-minded to staying with the Cardinals, which tells me, hey, you send me to a contender that's within kind of the Nashville area, which is where I think it's where he's from or it's where his family lives. I can't remember. I could see where someone like, whether it be the Atlanta Braves calls, maybe the Reds call, when they had interest in him last time, so did the Braves. I could see where one of those teams says, hey, we'll give up some assets to take Sonny Gray, and he accepts a trade there. So I will forget this. I think he will be traded.
You know how much Cardinals love a player that says, no, I want to be here. That's their whole ability to sign guys via free agency. Hey, I want to be there. Cool, we'll sign you. I don't know if you're going to move a guy that says he wants to be in St. Louis when you're going through a retool.
This year doesn't matter. You know,
to them, it matters developing your younger players, and you want a guy like Sonny Gray around them.
All right, bet it or forget it. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube is available for you. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. If you want to get a scenario in, we'll get those here on BK and Ferrario. From the 314, bet it or forget it, Alex. The Blues will trade for Trent Frederick this season. Apparently, he's potentially available.
Well, Boston has not been good this season. Trent Frederick also has not been very good this season, but I blame a lot of that on the team.
I blame it on the coach.
Yeah, there you go, T-Bone.
You blame it on the coach until they fire him, and then everyone's like, oh my God, Jim Montgomery's available.
I wouldn't want him. Look at what Bannister's doing right now.
What?
All right.
He's winning.
Alex Frederick.
I'll bet this one. He's going to be a UFA. He's 26 years old. He's $2.3 million. If you're in any position to where you feel like you have an opportunity to have success this season, you go get a dude who's 26. He's going to be a UFA. That's going to be the toughest part with this one. How much is he going to cost? But because you've signed all of your restricted free agents and you know where your salary's at next year, I'll bet this one. I wonder if they go after it.
This feels similar to like a Matthew Joseph type of addition. He's not a guy that's going to come in and overwhelm anybody. He's not going to be a 30-goal scorer or anything like that. There's not that kind of potential here. But 15 goals.
Yeah, he scored 18
third-line
last
winger.
year.
And I think you could expect like a 10 to 15 goal scorer regularly with forecheck ability. He can play the center position if you need him to in a pinch. Not what you want long-term, but can play the position. I think it would make a lot of sense, and you probably would re-sign him for the long term. $4 million a year,
especially because he's your Radek Faksa next year. Fox is a free agent after this year. He's making 3.25. You bump it up like $1 million more, and now you've got your third line center locked in for the next however many years.
Wait, I was not expecting to be alone in this. I can't tell you how much I want to forget this one. You have these guys. You don't need more. You know what you need? You need the stars. And I don't think you need to give up an asset to go get that guy.
You need the stars if you're not going off of pack mentality. This team's building pack mentality.
I think they're building wrong. Maybe that's been my point all along for the last week and a half. And now I finally have gotten there. They're building it wrong. They need stars to win in the modern NHL.
I agree.
And I don't think you need more of these guys. And to me, they're done collecting assets. Like, can't Zach Dean develop into that guy's role? Taking Fox's role?
I don't know that
Dean's 5'11" and 195 pounds. Frederick's 6'3", 220.
I think you've got plenty of those guys.
I don't think he's replacing Foxa, by the way. I think he would be replacing one of your wingers on the third line.
Oh, no, he's your centerman. If you're bringing him in, I think he's your centerman. He's taking faceoffs for you.
He doesn't win faceoffs.
Well, yeah, you're forcing him to take faceoffs there.
Great.
You're forcing him to take faceoffs.
But why?
Just because he's a big body.
I mean,
you're putting him down the middle so that you could drive play.
43% clip in his career. He's been under 40% multiple years.
I get it, but
he's really only been a full-time centerman once.
Teams value size down the middle, and you're putting him into that position no matter what.
I would put it, if you're going to trade for, I'm not trading for him as a center. You don't need that.
I'm not trading for him, period.
If I'm trading for him, I would trade for him as a winger, and I would just put him on the left side. Let's see what this looks like. T-Bone makes some interesting points, though. Twice in one segment.
That's what Corsi says on the YouTube chat.
Makes
T-Bone doesn't watch the game.
Arguments. Coming up next, what do the Cardinals do if Willson Contreras wants to stay with the St. Louis Cardinals? Talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend Tracy Bibb. And boy, if you have ever been in the need for an insurance agent, today is probably one of those days. I woke up and my basement had water in it. And you know what happens in those situations? You panic. You're like, how do we get this fixed? Luckily, I've got the right person, and it's Tracy Bibb, who is always available for us. You give her a call. You tell her what the issue is. The best part here, she answers the first time that you call. And when she does, she's able to solve the issues that you have. So whether you've got flooding problems, which I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with right now, roofing issues, or just the auto issues, Tracy Bibb is there to protect you. And on top of it, she is making sure that she's saving you money, always checking in on the rates, making sure that she's providing you the most competitive ones. So give Tracy a call today and get the proper protection that you and your family need with your car and home insurance. Super easy. All you got to do is give her a call, 314-328-4260. Just tell Tracy that Alex Ferrario sent you. She'll be able to walk you through the whole process. Free, non-committal quote. Super simple. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues back in action tonight as they host the Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for puck drop at 7. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alex, what do the Cardinals do if Willson Contreras says, you know what, I actually want to stay. I don't want to go anywhere. I have a full no-trade clause. I would like to be in St. Louis. I chose to be a Cardinal.
Love the zoo.
I want to be a Cardinal. I want to see this thing through. I believe I can be here when we get good again, similar to what Salvador Perez has done in Kansas City, where he was there when they were really good. Took a decade, but he stuck with them through the entire... I'm not kidding. Literally a decade. They were good in 2015 and good again in 2024.
I don't think Willson Contreras is that young to do that.
Salvi wasn't young at the time either. He's, 34, 35 years old?
Salvi's a unicorn. He's like, 44 years old right now, and he's still mashing 30 home runs?
It's pretty crazy, but maybe he wants to be the Salvador Perez of seeing the Cardinals through this retool. Salvador Perez is 34 years old right now. At any point in the last 4 years, he could have asked or demanded a trade from the Royals, and the Royals probably would have gone with the request because he means that much to their organization. He didn't want to. He wanted to see things through there. I think it's possible Contreras sees something similarly here where he says, I came here for a reason. I want to see this thing through. I'm 32 years old. I believe by the time I'm 35, I can have a season similar to what we just saw from Salvi with the Royals. If that is the case, Alex, if he wants to be here, what do you do? How much does that change your offseason plans as the St. Louis Cardinals?
I mean, to me, it doesn't really change much, but I've been in the boat of I think Willson Contreras should still be here because he's got a winning background, and I think that's a good thing to have for a Cardinals team. But I would go the route that the Kansas City Royals have done so with Salvador Perez. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, BK, but Salvador Perez, more times than not, is your designated hitter for the Kansas City Royals.
Not this year.
Really?
They used him a decent amount, yeah.
I would look at Willson Contreras and say, if you're going to be here, we need you to stay healthy for as long as possible, and we need your bat. So you're our DH. And then you're also our backup catcher to where, like, if we need a day off for Ivan Herrera, then you're our starting catcher.
Something that Salvi did do this year was played first base.
So you could do that one as well.
Played 90 games behind the plate, 47 as a first baseman, and 25 as a DH. So that's something that you could consider with Contreras, especially since you have such a splitty player where Burleson, really good against right-handed pitching, really struggled at least this past season against lefties. If that continues in 2025, you should see it first. You don't want to just immediately pull him against left-handed pitchers. But if we start to see similar signs this upcoming year, maybe that is something you consider, and you give him more opportunities at first. That way it leaves DH open.
I think the first thing you're going to have to answer if you're the Cardinals isn't, does Willson Contreras want to be here, or should we try and move him? It's, what are we going to do with Ivan Herrera? Because if you're going to fully embrace the fact that Ivan Herrera is a part of this team moving forward and not trade him, then decide what position he's playing. Because if he's going to be, or you're going to form him into the catcher that you believe he can be and work on the areas that he is not good in, well, then that's when you look at Willson Contreras and say, let's find a spot for you. Because you're not going to be our catcher. We can have you as a backup catcher. We need your bat for 150-plus games this season. Because I'll take that 136 OPS plus from this year for the next however many years. And that's what Salvador Perez has been. He's, one, been a leader. Two, he's been offensively incredible. Make Willson Contreras your everyday DH, occasionally at first base, occasionally a catcher.
Give me a quick projection. If you had to project the best Cardinals hitters next season as of today, who would you rank as your top three? Just most productive hitters on the team next season.
Mason Wynn, Willson Contreras, and like question mark, because I could put like four different guys there. I could do Herrera, I could do Donovan, I could do Burleson. I guess I'll say Brendan Donovan would be third.
I would go Contreras 1. I would probably go. I think Herrera would be top 3 for me because I think he's going to grow into power. And then I think third on that list would probably be either one of Donovan or Wynn. Would probably be my top 3.
I would have Donovan 3. I have Herrera 2. Yeah. The reason why I asked that question is because I don't think this changes anything for you as a team. It shouldn't, at least.
We got to trade Herrera now.
If you have Willson Contreras back, cool. I've got one of the best catchers in the game right now. That's what my response would be. And then beyond that, Ivan Herrera changes nothing for me with him. Ivan Herrera, you're back. Contreras is going to start 2 out of every 3 games behind the plate. That third game, DH or first base, depending on what the situation is there. Cool. We'll keep him in the lineup every day. Ivan Herrera, it's the opposite. 2 days a week, you're at DH. Or 2 days per series, you're at DH. The next day, you're behind the plate. Maybe we get Herrera some opportunities at first base as well. There's nothing wrong with having a bunch of dudes that can play first base, DH, or catch. That flexibility there is a good thing to be able to have. And if you've got those dudes that can actually hit, think a couple of years ago what the Blue Jays had. When they had Danny Jansen, Alejandro Kirk, both of them behind the plate, both of them hit extremely well. They didn't decide to trade those guys. They kept them.
Well, they traded one of them. They traded Moreno.
Eventually they did. Yes, they traded Moreno, who was the young guy, but they had those 2. And they ended up trading Moreno, which would, in your scenario, I suppose, not 1 for 1, but would be your Pajes. But Pajes can just go back down to AAA. He's got the options remaining for next season. I don't think they should change anything. Last year, it wasn't even close when it comes to who your most productive hitters were. 1, Willson Contreras. 2, Ivan Herrera. Massive gap. And then 3, 4 was where the next guys came in, and it was Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar. And then it was the rest of the team. Just keep Ivan Herrera here. Keep Willson Contreras here. Let's see what it looks like in 2 years from now. If you have to make a decision, you have to make a decision.
Yeah, and I think if Contreras stays, to me, the guy that you're changing a position for, if you even want to, is Herrera. Because Contreras is by far your best catcher.
Agreed.
Well, maybe not in terms of blocking and framing. That's probably is Pedro Pajes. But he's the best catcher that is mediocre at worst case scenario with those 2 sections. He caught 23% of base stealers last year.
He was good.
By far best on your team, by the way. Pajes was at 19%. Herrera, well, we won't bring up. It wasn't good. But
was it 9? Something like that? 6?
7.
7.
Yeah, right between. It wasn't. But I think Herrera's the guy that you look at as the position change, to where he can be like that backup catcher. You hope that he improves a little bit on that caught stealing percentage. But then he's a guy I would play at first base in platoon with Burleson then. Because Contreras, I don't want to take him from behind the plate because he's got the best arm on the team. And if Herrera can now play first base, well, now, hell, you may not even have to have the question of, well, then what do we do with Pajes? Maybe you carry him as the third catcher, and then Herrera is primary DH/first baseman, and Pajes is the backup catcher. Like,
all I know is the Moneyball said it was super easy.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
To be able to learn how to play first base.
Yeah, because that always works out.
Yeah,
It's not exactly how it went, but
they
suggested at one point it's super easy. Tell him, Wash. It's not easy.
And then Jose Martinez proved that it's not necessarily true. But
and Matt Carpenter.
I think Herrera could be fine at first base. You know, just like I think Burleson. I don't think he's going to be great at first base, but I think he's going to be good. I think these are the type of things that you should be doing and be getting creative with those guys in this catch position rather than just saying, 3 guys, boy, only 2 spots. We must have to trade one of them. No, why do that? And even if you want the path of least resistance, just put Pajes in the minor leagues.
Bingo.
I don't see...
Or carry 3 catchers. Not like this team doesn't have any roster spots available for it.
I don't see the offensive upside.
Crawford and Carpenter last year.
I don't see offensive upside in Pedro Pajes. The Cardinals kind of sold that a little bit. He's more of just a defensive catcher. You know where you can get those guys? Anywhere. They're always available. Just ask them. They go through the waiver wire all the freaking time.
In the offseason, how many times, T-Bone, have we talked about, well, if you want, you can get a veteran catcher for $2 million.
Exactly.
Your Tucker Barnharts, they're a dime a dozen. They're all out there available, ready to go. You can pick them up mid-season.
I'll say Maldonado. Yeah.
Yeah, Maldonado, sure. Whoever you want it to be. There's like 10 of them that every year are available via free agency because they all sign 1-year deals. And you can go pick them up, get a good 6 weeks out of them, put them back on waivers. They go somewhere else, get a good 6 weeks, and then boom. It's like backup goalies in the NHL. There's a certain level where like the Blues have Joel Hofer right now, so you feel really good about that. But how many different backups did they go through over the last decade, Alex? Like 7, 8, 9, 10 of those guys.
A lot of them.
Chad Johnson at one point. Like they went through a million different backups, and they're all the same thing. Like they're fine. Same thing is true for catcher. I would not have this change anything. Ivan Herrera is not a guy that I'm interested in moving this offseason. All right, he's Alex the T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we're getting to the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex for the Rewind. Today we'll begin with the St. Louis Blues. They're back in action this evening. Alex will have pregame coverage for you starting on 101 ESPN at 6 o'clock. Puck drop against the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight at 7. This is not your classic Tampa Bay Lightning team. They don't have a ton of depth the way that they once did, Alex. They have been hemorrhaging that over the last few seasons. Their power play has not been as good this season, which is strange considering the options that they have on that unit. What are you looking forward to? What's the top storyline that you're going to be watching tonight, monitoring in this game against Tampa?
Honestly, it's going to be how you defend a team without Philip Broberg. Yes, you're right. Like, this is not the typical Tampa Bay Lightning team, but they're still fifth best in the National Hockey League in terms of goals scored this season.
They've got Kucherov, who has 10 goals in 12 games, and they have Point, who has 8 goals in 12
Jake
games.
Gensel just fills right into what Steven Stamkos was. You still have Victor Hedman. They still have the offense. And now, when you're without Philip Broberg and Robert Thomas, I could really care less what you do offensively. I know that's going to be a lot of hard work to score goals. But what do you look like defensively now? How do you deploy Suter, Parayko, Falk so that they can last for 4 to 6 weeks? And what does a P.O. Joseph, Matt Kessel look like with a higher role? That's what I'm focused in on for this one.
I just want to see what your goaltending looks like in this game. They've got some really good shooters on that team. This is not going to be an easy one for you to show what you're capable of. Like, you're going to run into a few of these. Boston has not been great offensively this year. Buffalo, Washington, maybe. Like, there's some Utah. There's some teams coming up where you can maybe get away with what we were talking about earlier. Just hold on for dear life and hopefully have a couple of counterattacks. Is not one of those games. You're going to have to really be able to defend well. It's not an easy task for the St. Louis Blues. On the basketball side of things, it was 3 different teams locally that were in action last night: Illinois, Mizzou, and SLU. Good night for Illinois. Got a couple of freshmen that look amazing. Now, was against a blood donor program, so you expect them to look good, but they did.
At least it's a win.
The only things you can learn, we said this about Mizzou early in the season, the only things you can learn in those kinds of games are bad things. You didn't learn anything bad last night, and in fact, it opened my eyes to a couple of their young guys that left me wishing that they were on Mizzou.
Now, speaking of bad,
on the Missouri side of things, I saw a graphic just a little bit ago on social media. Power Conference college basketball teams. Have you won a game in the year 2024? And for almost all of them, they were circled, and it says, of course, it's November.
it's easy.
And then there was one, and it's just the Missouri Tigers, and the answer was no. They have not won a game literally in the calendar year 2024. The last time they won was, I think, December 3rd of last year, like 2023.
Looking forward to that matchup against Howard.
Really bad, and last night was ugly, man. It reminded me so much of watching last year's team with just different faces. Too many turnovers, didn't hit threes, had one nice stretch of like 10 minutes, and otherwise it was just bad basketball. And it looked like that against a Memphis team that is not well coached, had a player opt out like an hour before the game because of an NIL dispute.
Still amazing to me.
Not a good spot to be in.
No, the biggest thing that stuck out to me with that team were the turnovers in the second half, specifically when you had an opportunity to just lock things down. You made terrible decisions with the ball, and then I just thought they got bullied in their own end. I thought they got bullied under the basket, and that's not a good recipe for a Mizzou team.
Last thing, SLU, big injury for them. Robbie Avila going to be out for a little while. Looks like it's an ankle sprain, the same one that he had previously. The last time that was about a 3 or 4 week injury. If you expect something similar, basically SLU is in a situation where they're going to have to win the conference to be able to make it to the tournament this year. That's worst case scenario. You could lose that game, still feel good about them if they played well. They lost the game and lost their best player, and they really only go 6 deep, so not a good spot for them. He's Alex Ferrario, that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll break everything down from tonight's Blues game tomorrow on this very radio program. The Fastlane will reveal who won in the Fastlane versus Riz Show Pick'em Challenge coming up here in just a little bit. They will take care of you from 2 to 6. Alex will be back at 6 o'clock for the pregame show here on 101 ESPN.